This podcast of the Equine Forum is brought to you by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business and by FarmPaint.com.
The University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business is now offering a graduate certificate, which can be completed in 15 or 30 weeks and be done as a standalone or used as 20% of your MBA. Classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level are forming now for August.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at FarmPaint.com. That's FarmPaint.com.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
A front-running score for Willie Shoemaker on swap in the 1955 Kentucky Derby.
Driving along the rail, and Dyke is driving on the outside. Majestic Prince is holding on by a head, and he wins it by a head.
It's Secretariat moving away. He has it by 2.5. Jam, then on the outside, Our Native. That's the wire it's going to be Secretariat.
Allie Stiebel with Chris McGarren to the front, then twice back to second. Here's the finish. Allie Stiebel wins it by 3 parts of a length.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Real Quiet is a bit leg weary. Victory Gallop is trying. Here's the line. Real Quiet wins the 124th running of the Kentucky Derby.
It's a three-horse total finish, and on the wire, it's Giacomo, who has won the 131st Kentucky Derby.
American Pharaoh and Victor Espinosa have won the Kentucky Derby. Mage has taken the lead here as they come into the final 16, and it is going to be Mage to win the Kentucky Derby.
Now, here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, wishing all of you across HRN Nation a very happy Kentucky Derby Day and welcoming you to the show that started it all here for us on HRN, the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Happy to have you back in the saddle with me here this morning, right up until 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius 162, XM 207, our affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, and streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you access your podcasts. Well, the 150th Run for the Roses now just 10 hours, 58 minutes, and 1 second away. Yeah, if you're not pumped up after hearing that little bit of a countdown, you should be. Let's look back at what happened yesterday at Churchill Downs. Let's start there, then I'll tell you more about the Kentucky Derby, some of the history, some of the traditions that go along with it as we celebrate Derby 150. Yesterday, the Kentucky Oaks going to Torpedo Anna, the daughter of Fast Anna, just brilliant. Ken McPeak has been talking about her all week long, and he has not held back. Now, I understand Ken McPeak can sing praise on a lot of his horses, right? He's liked a lot of his horses over the years. He was 100% right about Torpedo Anna. She was really, really good. And a start in the Preakness Stakes in 2 weeks is not out of the question. He said, that's something that he would like to do. He's not afraid to do that. We'll see if she shows up in Baltimore in 2 weeks. Brian Hernandez Jr., well done. Congratulations to him, one of racing's real good guys. Congratulations to Kenny. Congratulations to the ownership group, Brookdale Racing, Mark Edwards, Judy Hicks, who also the breeder of Torpedo Anna, and Magdalena Racing, Sherry McPeak. Congratulations to everybody involved with that tremendous victory. And wouldn't it be cool to see her in the middle jewel of racing's Triple Crown in 2 weeks? I think it'd be fantastic. So we'll see how that all plays out. Weather forecast today at Churchill looking much, much better. Temperatures should be somewhere around 80 degrees. Just a very slight chance of rain as we make our way through the afternoon. But for all intents and purposes, everything looks pretty good in Louisville, Kentucky for the 150th Derby. 150 years ago, Aristides became the first Kentucky Derby winner when he conquered his rivals over 1.5 miles in front of what was an estimated crowd of about 10,000 racing fans. It was one of just 4 races run on that inaugural Kentucky Derby Day program. There's going to be a few more later today, about 14. The purse for the first Derby in 1875 was $3,050, which, if my research and my math are correct, would be the equivalent of approximately $86,601.09 today. This afternoon's Derby field is going to compete for a purse of $5 million, with the winner banking just over $3 million. So what a difference a century and a half can make, huh? Aristides also got the raw deal when it comes to the Garland of Roses. The idea of having roses associated with the Kentucky Derby wasn't introduced until 1883. That year, roses were given to all ladies attending a popular Louisville party. They were the roses and that gift turned out to be so popular that Churchill Downs track president Colonel M. Lewis Clark decided to feature the rose as the official flower of the Kentucky Derby the following year in 1884. However, the tradition of actually draping a garland of roses across the withers of the winning horse didn't begin until the 1896 running, which was won by Ben Brush. And it wouldn't be until 29 years later, in 1925, that the late New York sports columnist Bill Corum dubbed the race the Run for the Roses. Little taste of Derby history to get you out of the starting gate here this morning on the Equine Forum. And if you really want to impress your friends when talking about the Kentucky Derby this afternoon, here's a few nuggets that you can throw out there. According to the Churchill Downs Media Guide, yeah, I know, I went deep down the rabbit hole on this one. The Garland of Roses is made up of 400 Freedom Roses from Kroger's Master Floral Designers, which are individually hand-sewn to the winner's garland. The garland is 2.5 yards long, 14 inches wide, and it weighs about 40 pounds. So hit your friends up with that one. And if you're wondering about the winning jockey's bouquet, yeah, the jockey gets a bouquet of roses too. It's made up of 60 matching long-stemmed red roses, wrapped with 10 yards of ribbon, if you really want to sound smart. And there are 2,100 roses dressing the Kentucky Derby winner's circle. So when you see that picture on television this afternoon, and the horse standing there with the 400 Freedom Roses draped across his withers, just know that there are 2,100 roses surrounding him in that Kentucky Derby winner's circle. And for all of you who are hosting or attending Derby parties later today, here is an even more valuable piece of information before I tell you what's coming up on today's show. The mint julep has been the official drink of the Kentucky Derby since the 1930s. And here's the official recipe to make your mint juleps. 2 cups of sugar, 2 cups of water, sprigs of fresh mint, crushed ice, and Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Typically that's Old Forester. And it's all served in a silver julep cup. That's it. That's how you do it here on Kentucky Derby Day, the 150th running. There are so many historical trends and so much history that we're going to talk about throughout the show here this morning for you. So much tradition associated with this race. It's the oldest continuously run sporting event, the Kentucky Derby. You know, you think about the Super Bowls. What's the Super Bowl, 50-something years old? We're talking about the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby this afternoon. Hall of Fame turf rider Jennie Rees covered her first Kentucky Derby in 1984 for the Louisville Courier-Journal. She would then spend the next 31 and a half years of her life covering the sport for that newspaper. So, as you can imagine, Jennie has a plethora of wonderful Derby memories and stories, which she will share with you in just a few minutes coming up at 8:15 Eastern. There have been 40 fillies who have attempted to beat the boys on the first Saturday in May. Only 3 have been able to pull it off. Regret in 1915, Genuine Risk in 1980, and Winning Colors in 1988. And for those of you who have been tuning into our Derby Countdown shows throughout the week and all of our programming that we bring your way on a weekly basis, you know that we have been celebrating Winning Colors Week here on HRRN, all presented by Keeneland Sales. And at 8:35 Eastern, later in this first hour. You're going to hear from Ryan Mahan. He is Keeneland's director of auctioneers. He was on the inspection crew for Keeneland when she was a yearling. He has some great stories about winning colors. We'll talk to Ryan about that brilliant filly. You heard from Wayne Lucas earlier this week, and if you missed that conversation with the great Wayne Lucas, head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. He talks about winning colors. He talks about the Kentucky Derby this afternoon, too. Wonderful conversation with Wayne Lucas, and it's posted there on our homepage for you. You're going to hear from 2024 Hall of Fame inductee. That's jockey Joel Rosario. He's going to get a leg up aboard Track Phantom for Hall of Fame trainer Steve Asmussen in today's Kentucky Derby. Joel took time earlier this week to sit down and visit with me. He looks back on his first Kentucky Derby, talks about what that experience was like. He talks about being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, and now he talks about Track Phantom and approaching this year's Kentucky Derby. How does he do it? How does he get ready? He talks about all of that, and you're going to hear that interview at 9 Eastern. 9:20, it's this week's edition of Kentucky Bred. I welcome Nick Zito. Now, Nick is not a Kentucky bred. Nick's a New York guy. But he's won the Kentucky Derby twice, and he's won it with a pair of Kentucky breds. Strike the gold and go for gin. So you can't talk about the Derby without talking about Nick Zito. We'll do that at 9:20 Eastern. He'll be here live with me. And at 9:40, John Velazquez took time to visit with Bobby Newman and Jude Feld on our Derby Countdown show this week. And you're going to hear that interview at 9:40 as he talks about Fierceness, the likely favorite in today's Kentucky Derby. 10 Eastern is Joe Kristufek with the TwinSpires Triple Play, all three races coming from Churchill Downs, including a look at the Kentucky Derby with Joe at 10 o'clock Eastern. 10:20, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History. And at 10:30, Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin will join me for a special Kentucky Derby edition of I Ask, They Answer. Loaded program, lots of history, lots of recent content as it applies to this year's Kentucky Derby as well. You're going to hear, we're going to cover a lot of different angles for you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern. Poll question. I want to see which of you is the sharpest handicapper in HRRN Nation. So my poll question today is, what is your Kentucky Derby superfecta? Your top four finishers. Doesn't have to be in exact order, but I want to know your top four finishers in today's Kentucky Derby. And if somebody gets it in exact order, that's going to be fantastic. But give me the horses are going to finish 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the Derby. And you can do that on our Twitter page at HRRN. You can do it Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. And if you don't do social media, email the show, Mike at horseracingradio.net. And let me know, what's your Kentucky Derby superfecta? Let me know your top four finishers. As you can tell, going to be a very, very busy program. I told you the weather in Louisville looks great. Should be a beautiful day for Derby 150. We're going to kick off this show next with Jennie Rees. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Fans, today is the fabled Run for the Roses. In SoCal, there is no better place to watch and wager on the Kentucky Derby than right here at Santa Anita Park. We have a great day at the track as well, with 11 live races and plenty of entertainment like the Californian Vintage Motorcycle Show and the wildly popular Michelada Rumble. Both are held in the infield along with live music and a family fun zone. On the trackside, we'll have a fashion show and contest, and we will be offering a special Derby Day package that includes admission, a program, parking, and a collector's item t-shirt featuring Santa Anita Derby winner Stronghold. Details are on santanita.com. That t-shirt will also be available for sale at the First Bet Information Center for $20. Come out and root on the hometown favorite in the biggest race of the year on a very big day here as well. The top jockeys, the top trainers, the Kentucky Derby simulcast, and fantastic entertainment are right here at the great race place, Santa Anita Park.
Deep in the heart of horse country, From these Kentucky hills has sprung a legacy rivaled by few. From the all-time greats of yesterday to the breed-shaping bloodlines of today, our roots hold strong with the promise of tomorrow. For over a century, our passion has guided us to where we stand and everything we stand for. Claiborne Farm, the tradition continues.
Hey, if your horse struggles with ulcers from time to time, I've got some good news for you. Reline GI by Haggard has a new improved formula, and scientific studies show that it definitely improves gut health. So what's new about Reline GI? It's made with a new beta-glucan that stimulates the immune system to work on targeted areas of a horse's stomach. Plus, there's also a new price that can save you nearly $100 per gallon. Visit ResolveVet.com to learn more about new Reline GI. Better science, better formula, better gut support.
From a world-class team of equine industry leaders with international breadth that honors history, tradition, and the sport comes business advisory expertise, providing strategic tax compliance and operational services with innovation and determined persistence. Located in the heart of horse country, Dean Dorton is revered for visionary guidance in equine accounting, tax, and business consulting. Dean Dorton. Tax, technology, outsourced accounting. Visit DeanDorton.com for all your equine operation needs.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Unbridled takes command. Summers fall in second. In 6 lengths farther back to Pleasant Tap. Along the inside, Mr. Frisky is out of it and through the stretch and to the wire. The 116th run for the Roses goes to Unbridled with jockey Frank Perret. 20 by 4 lengths. Summers fall with second and then 7 lengths farther back into Pleasant Tap.
Oh, I love you. Oh.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Dave Johnson with the call of that Kentucky Derby in 1990, won by Unbridled, that memorable moment with Hall of Fame trainer Carl Nasker and Mrs. Frances Genter after the race. Just so emotional and so beautiful, and that is part of what makes the Kentucky Derby so special, as is Jennie Rees. Jennie Rees has been covering the sport for a very long time. I told you in the first segment of the program, she is a Hall of Famer as part of the Joe Hirsch Media Honor Roll with the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame. She's been doing this since 1984, and she retired a few years ago. She's still around the track every single day. It is something that you can't talk about the Kentucky Derby without Nick Zito. You can't talk about the Kentucky Derby without Jennie Rees, and she is with me now here on HRRN. Jennie, happy Derby Day.
I say that you might, whoever used the word retirement, though, I reinvented myself.
That's right.
That's right. I work more hours for less money now, but I love it.
That's exactly right. Jennie, you and I have been having conversations both on air, off air, since I burst onto the scene in 2003 when I first started with Pete Coulis here on the Equine Forum. And thinking back on some of the derbies that I've had the privilege to be part of in covering here on the media side, there are so many special moments for me. Let's talk about some of your most special Kentucky Derby moments. I know the Unbridled moment we just heard stands out to you.
Yeah, sure. That was one. And just you talking about that with, Carl Nasker calling the race to Mrs. Genter, Frances Genter, saying, "I love you, Miss Genter." And then what also I forgot about was Craig Perret was the jockey on the horse because Pat Day had opted to ride Summer Squall and he finished second and then won the Preakness. But Jan Perret had just had a baby, and Jan Perret told this story that she was so excited jumping up and down that I guess she sort of dropped the baby. She told the story, and people around her were saying, she dropped the baby. But anyways, that was really a great derby. But, since I knew we were going to have this conversation, it got me thinking that 2 years later, speaking of Pat Day, was one of my favorite, was Lily T. Pat Day winning what would be his only derby. He'd had a bunch of seconds. Lynn Whiting, who lived in Louisville, one of the real good guys. And his barn, though, was right across the bridle path from the free donut. So it always boggled my mind that the media people after the fact saying, we didn't know anything about this horse. We never talked to Lynn Whiting. I said, well, he's right across from the free donuts. And Lynn told anybody that would listen that this horse had a huge chance. And the thing about it is he had just gotten beat a nose by Pine Bluff, who was like the third choice in the Arkansas Derby. But that's when the Arkansas Derby was 2 weeks out. He'd won the Jim Beam. But here's what I had kind of forgotten about till just thinking back about it. Gary Wilford was the racing secretary at Turfway Park. And he said that, told Lynn that if Lily T won, because he'd won the Jim Beam, he would dance on top of Lynn Whiting's barn roof. And Gary was a very big guy. And sure enough, he did. This is when you could do these things. Butch Lear built up, who was the track superintendent, he built a platform on the roof of that barn, of Lynn's barn, and somewhere somebody came up with these outsized cow party orange silks with white dots that Gary put on, and he got up on the roof and he danced, subsequently, like maybe, a week or two later. I forget exactly when it was, but, those are just the kinds of things that you really make the Derby special. And the other thing was probably one of the greatest trips I'd hustled was to France to watch Arazi's one prep race. Arazi had been the 2-year-old champion. They had come over from France to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he was the big favorite. I remember Lynn Whiting telling me, because Arazi had only one prep race at St. Cloud. It was a mile that they ran in on turf, ran 140. And Lynn said to me, if that horse wins, they ought to just go on and engrave the Trainer Eclipse Award for Francois Bouton, because that would be an unbelievable. He just didn't think that it could be possible. Yet when all was said and done, Lynn he had bet in Caliente back when they had the big sports books there, and he early on with on Lily T. And this was also before they had commingled pools and simulcasting. So while I want to say Lily T only paid something like $38 here in Louisville, he paid $100 to win in New York and California. But getting back to Arazi, when all was said and done, Lynn Whiting, he showed me back at the barn before the horses walked over, he'd made 2 bets that day. He'd boxed Lily T, $50 exacta boxes with Pine Bluff, and then he'd also boxed him with Arazi. I'm like, Arazi, you said there's no way. He goes, well, just in case he really, really was a super horse and he was wrong. But those are, that was probably not a Derby that stands out in a lot of people's memories, but that was one of my favorite ones when the hometown boys, got the trophy.
It is such a great story, Jenny. And, this is the anniversary of a couple of significant occurrences in Derby history. It was May 4th, 1957. This is the 67-year anniversary of the late Hall of Fame jockey Bill Shoemaker's infamous misjudgment of the finish line in the Kentucky Derby. And I know that was, well before you came along and started covering the sport, but there was another Bill Shoemaker moment that stands out to you. What is it?
1986, the Sunshine Boys, Charlie Whittingham and Shoemaker. Whittingham was 73 at the time, and he became the oldest Derby-winning trainer, but which he 3 years later increased to 76 when Sunday Silence won. But Shoemaker was 54, which is still a record. And one thing that was interesting about that was Whittingham was famous for his older horses, and he really kind of poo-pawed the Derby until he won, and then he really got the religion. And you started seeing him there, trying harder to get there. And of course, he did win 3 years later with Sunday Silence, which is another one of my favorite great, it was a really great showdown between Sunday Silence on the West Coast, Easy Goer, the big champion of the East Coast. And back then horses ran more, so they had more form to go on and stuff. And it's hard we don't really have those kinds of rivalries anymore. It doesn't seem like coming into the Derby. But that was also interesting to see how trainers look for different things in a work. I remember this is when horses would blow out a half mile. It might have been the Thursday or Wednesday before. And so Easy Goer went out to work like a half mile. This is my memory, but I want to say he went like 45 and change. And Suge was not happy at all. He comes back. And then right after that, Sunday Silence went out. And he worked even faster. And Whittingham came back with a big smile and said, boys, bet all you want. And just shows how different training methods are. And the basically the same work had two different reactions for those trainers. That was a great rivalry. And so I think that's a lot of people's among their short list of really great derbies was 1989. And the year before, Winning Colors.
Winning Colors,
Yes. Got to remember her because she was actually my pick that year, and as was Lily T. So they're kind of few and far between. But that was Wayne Lucas. Well, here's the thing. I had asked, as far as Lily T., I'd asked Lynn Whiting. I said, well, what should I look smart and pick your horse? He goes, go on, have some guts or something like that. But Lynn wasn't somebody that was, just loved all of his horses. He was very much a straight shooter. I thought, well, if he feels that way, let's, and I got a lot of mileage out of that picks for a lot of years to make up for all other picks. But the great thing about Winning Colors was Billy Reed, late great Billy Reed, and I were in the old track superintendent's office off the paddock runway watching the Derby on TV with Wayne. And Wayne at that point was 0 for 12 heading into the race. And it seems ridiculous now, but the media made a huge deal that he was 0 for 12. Like this was, what Steve Asmussen now, I think 0 for 20 something. Really 0 for 12 is not much at all. But when Winning Colors led virtually all the way, 49er, couldn't catch her, Wayne just said, my turn, and went out to the track. And that was that was a very cool race to be there when Wayne won his first, right, standing right there. But speaking of Wayne, Grindstone, 1996, winning by a nose over Cavalier, which was Bob Baffert's first Derby participant. Cavalier had won, he was a Calbred gelding. He'd run the Santa Anita Derby, and I remember that's when I would go out and cover the Santa Anita Derby every year. And he said before that race, if he won the Santa Anita Derby, he'd run through the infield naked, which didn't happen, but it was a good story. But he won for W.T. Young, and that was very popular. W.T. Young, what a great humanitarian man he was to win. Very tight photo, just Grindstone winning on the last jump in what would be the last race. He was retired with knee chips after that. But W.T. Young would not go down to the winner's circle until the race was official. And everybody saying, you got to watch it. And he would not, because in 1985 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Mr. Young had Stormcat, and Stormcat got beat by Tasso. But it was another tight photo. And Mr. Young did go down to the winner's circle, only to find out Tasso was the winner. He said he'd never go down there again until the race was official. Fast forward, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but Cat Thief, who would be third to Cavalier in, 1999, he won, a son of Stormcat, won the Breeders' Cup Classic in Florida. And Mr. Young was just really in quite the gregarious mood. And he told the story how, even though that was a mortifying time when Stormcat got beat the nose and he erroneously went down to the winner's circle, he said, had that nose gone the other way, he said, the Japanese would have offered him so much money for that horse, he probably would have sold him, and he wouldn't have had Stormcat. We know what a great stallion he went on to be.
Wow.
So I thought that was a great story, and I was sharing that with Rick Waldman, the co-owner of Resilience, the Wood Memorial winner running, who I think has a huge shot today. And Rick said, he might have said that. He said, but I really doubt that would have happened, because with Mr. Young, the more somebody wanted his horse, the more he dug in to keep the horse, that he wanted to keep the horse if somebody else wanted him. So just the things you pick up even years later, reflecting on. But let's see, because I know we're going to run short on time. So Swale, my first Derby.
Jenny, you take as much time as you want. This is fantastic. What a way to stroll through racing history and to stroll through Kentucky Derby history. I'm talking with Jennie Rees, who has been reinvented after working with the Courier-Journal for more than 3 decades, and she's sharing some of her thoughts on her favorite derbies. You know, Jenny, I'll bring you into this one for a second because I know you wanted to talk about this particular Kentucky Derby. We started talking about Carl Nasker and Unbridled and how special that moment was. How about in 2007 when Street Sense won for Carl under Calvin Burrell?
Yes, that was definitely another great one. That was another pick that, you know, like I said, there's few and far between my picks, but he was a 2-year-old champion. And I remember John Asher was the late great John Asher was in on Street Sense early on as a 2-year-old. He's a locally based horse. It was a really great field. Later, we'd appreciate how great when you see who finished third that day was Horse of the Year Curlin, who's a Hall of Fame horse himself, and Hard Spun was second. I had won the whatever they were calling the Jim Beam Spiral that year, but it was Calvin Burrell's first Derby victory, the first of what would be 3 in 4 years. And again, with the local guys at that point, Carl Nasker had pretty much moved to Kentucky from Chicago, and Calvin lived in Louisville, and Ian Wilkes was the assistant trainer, but kind of the co-trainer of Street Sense. And that was a truly great Derby, again, for the locals. I cheer for the locals, sure. These are the people you see every day. You see them filling out the cards on, you know, Thursdays and stuff, and it was just very cool to get. And then I remember Donna Barton Brothers talking about on NBC that, you know, she always on the pony would interview the jockey, and so she goes to say something to Calvin, and he's like crying, and he's like saying he wished his mom and his dad were there, and so she doesn't ask a question. And she was telling me later, she thought, I'm going to be in big trouble because I didn't ask a question. And she gets back and they said, Donna, that was fantastic. Just let the moment in the video show the cameras being on Calvin and the emotion that he had. I'm getting a little choked up just thinking about it. That it was really, you know, Calvin, and then you had, oh, gosh, you know, Mind That Bird to me was just a fun Derby. And that was the second of Calvin's 3 Derby wins. And I don't know who else would have gotten through, you know, like he did with that ride. But the thing about Calvin Burrell is he would never give up on a horse. But watching from the old press box at the race from the top and seeing Mind That Bird, this is a horse that had come from Mexico. Chip Willie, the trainer, had never even been in a graded stakes race before the Kentucky Derby because Mind That Bird, who was the 2-year-old champion in Canada, had been raced by had a different trainer at the time. But after the break, as they go to the first turn, he looked like he was going to lose contact. And so Chip Willie, I'm jumping around, but Chip, of course, drove the horse famously from New Mexico with crutches because he'd badly broken his leg in, I think it was a motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
And so and we had actually, I was part of the Courier-Journal. We'd written about that. A lot of people, because this horse was 50-1 and should have been 50-1. I mean, he finished like 5th, 4th, or 4th, maybe it was, in the Southern Park Derby. And I thought, this horse is going to be easy. He's going to be easy before they even get to the backstretch. But then he comes flying, and his silks were similar, I want to say, to another horse in the race. And it was kind of easy to confuse him. And I think Tom Durkin didn't catch the horse until late. But it's like, I just remember being on the roof watching it, and he's coming up the round thinking, I'm going, Mind That Bird, Mind That Bird. And the post-race interview on television, where he's on the podium, later some of the TV guys were saying they thought Chip Willie seemed a little, standoffish and a little like, kind of didn't seem like he got the Derby. No, he was in shock. They actually thought it would be a home run for them if they finished 5th and got their entry fees back.
Yeah.
And then they win. And then the next day, believe me, he got the Derby. The next day, Mark Allen, the co-owner, and Chip went over to the Derby Museum with a blanket of roses. And fans that just came to the museum, they handed out roses from the blanket of roses. And I thought, that's somebody that gets the Kentucky Derby and understands if you win the Kentucky Derby, if you've been chosen, if fate had smiled on you that you win the Kentucky Derby, then there is an obligation in return to give back, to be an ambassador for the sport, and to give your time. And I'm trying to think of an exception, but I really can't think of an exception right now. Even people maybe that kind of sort of at times can be dismissive of the press seem like they understand that. In that instance, they might go back to their old ways later, but in that time when they've got the Derby winner, they understand they need to do teleconferences. They need to do some of these press requests, even if they'd rather just be at the barn with their horses.
Yeah. Jennie Rees with me here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires. Jennie, we're down to about 2 minutes here in this segment. Ryan Mahan, the director of Auctioneers from Keeneland, coming up in the next segment to remember winning colors. We'll talk to him next. But there are two other derbies that really stand out to me that I had the privilege to be associated with covering, and that was Orb in 2013, Shug McGahee getting his first Derby win, and then California Chrome in 2014, 10 years ago. Art Sherman, his son Alan, Stephen, coming to the Kentucky Derby and winning with California Chrome.
I loved the California Chrome. That was like a Lifetime Achievement Award for Art Sherman, and it was very cool. Here's a guy that had been the exercise rider for Swaps, right? It was
Swaps.
Yep. Yeah, and had gone on the train with him everywhere. I know we're running out of time. I want to bring up 87 Ali Sheba, though. That was very cool.
Yeah.
You had Jack Vandenberg, who was stoked, almost like the Marlboro Man, and he choked up in the post-race interview, reflecting on his dad, Marion, and wishing, kind of like Calvin, he had been there. Ali Sheba, of course, nearly fell, clipping heels with Bet Twice, and Mickey Solomoni, who was riding Longshot AB's copy in third, said later, he goes, I'm thinking in the stretch, he says, I am going to win the freaking Kentucky Derby, because he thought Ali Sheba would be going down, Bet Twice would be disqualified, and he would be kissed in as the winner. But Ali Sheba was such an athletic horse. Chris McCarron, just athletic himself. The horse, righted himself and, went on to win. That was a great Derby too.
Jennie, in 30 seconds or less, who's your pick to win this year's Kentucky Derby?
Sierra Leone, but I'm giving Resilience a big shot too. I think the Derby winner circle goes through the Risen Star. I think Catching Freedom also has a big shot. I think there's a chance that Risen Star might be a great one before the Louisiana Derby. It's produced 5 horses that are in this Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Jennie, listen, it's always a delight to catch up, and that was a wonderful trip down memory lane. Really appreciate you doing it, and enjoy this year's Kentucky Derby, Derby 150. You are such a big part of that history, and you have brought the Derby to life for so many people over the years, and I thank you for doing it here this morning on the show.
Well, I just appreciate everything. From the beginning, I've been a big Horse Racing Radio Network fan, and just thank you for everything you all do for the sport.
Thanks, Jennie. Enjoy Derby Day.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Jennie Rees here on the incomparable Jennie Rees. What a fantastic look back on some of the top moments in Derby history through the eyes of a Hall of Fame turf rider. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about one of the other great Kentucky Derbies. That was winning colors in 1988 as we continue to celebrate Kentucky Derby Week, presented by Keeneland Sales. Going to do it with the Director of Auctioneers, Ryan Mahan. Stay tuned for that. That's in the next segment here on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
You're listening to HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Send your mare to Maryland. After she foals here, breed to one of our stallions, and your 2024 foal is eligible to be a registered Maryland bred, giving you the opportunity to earn significant bonuses. Beginning with 2-year-olds of 2025, Maryland bred and Maryland sired horses will earn 40% higher breeder bonuses than out-of-state sired runners. Better stallions, better mares, Maryland breds. Learn more at MarylandThoroughbred.com.
There are thrills around every turn at Gulfstream Park during the Royal Palm Meet with live horse racing action Thursday through Sunday and simulcast opportunities 7 days a week. Come out and enjoy weekend stakes races, including the Royal Palm Juvenile on the road to Royal Ascot. Take in the action from the Carousel Club or feast in 10 Palms Restaurant with an elevated view of the track. For stake schedules, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
You're listening to Winning Colors Week. All this week on HRRN.
The Keeneland September yearling sale is the global marketplace for thoroughbred yearlings and the world's most important thoroughbred sale. The September sale stands apart from all other auctions. It offers a critical mass of quality yearlings at all levels of the market and the largest and most diverse buying bench in the world. The success of Keeneland September graduates can be seen at the highest levels of racing worldwide. The 2024 September sale begins Monday, September 9th and runs through Saturday, September 21st. Entry deadline is May 1st.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Winning Colors in front. Here comes 49er on the outside. Lucas and Stevens. It's a driving finish. Winning Colors by a head. Wire to wire with Gary Stevens in the iron. It was 49er on the outside, coming from far back at the head of the stretch to narrow the gap and lose it by only a half length. Motors all around for the show. But Winning Colors, who defeated the boys in the Santa Anita Derby by grabbing the lead and never looking back, did the same thing in the 114th running of the Kentucky Derby, and she did it in 2 minutes 2 and 1/5 seconds.
That's Dave Johnson once again bringing them home in the 1988 running of the Kentucky Derby, the first of 4 Derby victories for now Hall of Fame trainer D. Wayne Lucas. He'll go in search of number 5 later today. How appropriate would it be to have Wayne Lucas win the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby? The track, according to Kevin Kirstein at Churchill Downs, currently muddy, expected to start out that way here this morning. By the opener, right around 10:30 Eastern, expecting the track to be upgraded to good. The turf is also labeled as good for those 14 races coming up this afternoon. The Kentucky Derby, race number 12, just before 7 o'clock Eastern is when the horses will leave the starting gate beneath the TwinSpires. Will there be another moment similar to what we saw with Winning Colors? It won't be a filly beating the boys, but that was a signature Kentucky Derby, and nobody knows that better than Ryan Mahan, who is the director of Auctioneers at Keeneland. All week long, we've been celebrating Winning Colors Week, presented by Keeneland Sales here on the network. We wrap it up today, and nobody better than Ryan here this morning. Ryan, happy to have you aboard, my friend. Happy Derby Day.
Thank you, Mike. Happy Derby Day to you. Quite a day.
Winning Colors. When I say that name, what things come to mind for you?
Well, I do have a good story about Winning Colors. I was fortunate enough to be, and still am, on the yearling inspection team for Keeneland. And at that time, 1986, when she was a yearling, of course, we, Dr. Davidson, Dr. Owen, and I went to Echo Valley Horse Farm in Georgetown, Kentucky, owned by Don Sucher. And I think he showed us 5, and she was the last to come out, of course. And it had rained all day and kind of a nasty day, and she comes out, and she's really a wow horse. I mean, she was very masculine, great shoulder, huge hip, just a Lucas-type horse, of course. And as I'm looking at her, I'm making all these wonderful notes about her, and she was kind of tough. So she rears up, backs into me. I turn around to get out of the way, and there's a knee-high hedge of boxwoods. Right on my face I go, in a mud puddle. So my final note on Winning Colors was inappropriate, of course, but it would be better for a female dog that I wrote down. So, of course, 2 years goes by. She's in the Derby. She's famous. And I think ABC did a coverage back then. And they said, can we do a little spot Derby day with you? I said, sure. So they come to Keeneland. They said, can you get your notes out? I said, sure, I'll find them somewhere. So I get the notes out, see that, have to scurry, redo the notes. And I go, okay, Gray Filly, Caro, all rainbows, new notes, delete the bad parts.
What a story. So right from the start, you could tell, you said she was very much a Lucas-type horse. You said she was big and robust. What does a Lucas-type horse look like, Ryan?
You know, Wayne, gosh, when he hit the sales scene, coming from the quarter horse world, he said things that we knew but didn't really, deep girth, heart girth, huge hip. And that's what he would look for. And she was just a big, strong filly. She was quite masculine. And, of course, now it's known as a Lucas horse.
She sells as a yearling for $575,000 at Keeneland. That was Keeneland July at that time. Came back as in the breeding stock sale in November. She sells for $4.1 million. That was after winning the Kentucky Derby and becoming the Winning Colors we all know today.
Yeah, she was something else. And, she never really had any foals that distinguished themselves too much, but she did so much on her own. And I think, didn't she sell one for maybe $2 million, $2.1 million? I think she did.
She did. I think she did. And then she came back, if you recall, in foal to Stormcat and sold for $2 million to BBA in England, right?
Correct.
Yeah, from the Gainesway consignment that year.
Right.
Yeah, she was so special. What do you remember about watching her win the Kentucky Derby in '88?
Well, Wayne is a good family friend of ours. My stepfather, Dr. Copeland, he are very close and still talk every day. My stepfather's 97, Wayne's 88, and so they have great stories. So I was really pulling for her, being a Keeneland grad and being in Wayne's barn. It was darn exciting.
Yeah, very special filly. And again, we've been celebrating Winning Colors all week long here on the network. Our coverage of Winning Colors presented by Keeneland Sales. Ryan, there will be several Keeneland Sales graduates associated with this year's Kentucky Derby. Whether there's another, the caliber of Winning Colors, we'll have to wait and see. But for you, in your role now with Keeneland and the auction crew, to sit back and to watch the horses that you saw come through the auction ring go on to big races like the Kentucky Derby. What is that like to be in that position?
Oh, it's very gratifying. You sit in that stand, for 14 days, 12 days, and just think, is that the one? Is that the one? And, of course, who knows if we did, it'd be a bit better. But Mage last year, we didn't expect that, of course. And then you did expect it. And over the years, we've sold so many Derby winners and Breeders' Cup winners that it's just so exciting to be a part of that. And when people ask me now, who's your Derby favorite this year, it's one of the 10 or 11 Keeneland grads. It's pretty easy for me.
Yeah, about half the field, right?
Right.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. As you're sitting there and you're watching the horses in the ring and you're dreaming about what could be, I know your job at that point is to keep the buyers engaged, but you're thinking about what could be. Have there been horses, Ryan, that when they stepped into that ring, you just said to yourself, yeah, this horse has that it factor?
I'm really glad you asked that, because I never tell this story because it doesn't seem real. But I was bid spotting at the time then, and Mr. Scarborough was looking at horses, and he said, who are your favorite two in the sale? And it was so lucky. I said, this horse and this horse. One was Ali Sheba, and one was Gone West. And he bought Ali Sheba. Oh, come on. And wow. That could never happen again. And he would tell that story. And it was like, I'll never do that again. But that was fun.
We were just talking about Ali Sheba toward the end of my conversation with Jennie Rees in the previous segment, and she said that was one Kentucky Derby. Now, she covered Kentucky Derby since 1984. She said that was one in particular that stood out to her because of Jack Van Berg being there, and his presence at the Kentucky Derby, she said, was pretty special.
Oh, it's just marvelous. And gosh, as you recall, that's when he kind of bobbled, and Chris McCarron looked like he was going off. And I've asked Chris several times about that, and I said, what was that like? You looked like you're going to win the Derby, and a second later looked like you're going to face plant. He said, honestly, it happened it was so quick I didn't even know it. I said, well, I think I would have.
Jennie shared her thoughts on some of her personal favorite Kentucky Derby moments. What other moments in Derby history, Ryan, stand out to you when you think back on these years?
Probably. Now, this is going way back, and it's not a Keeneland grad, of course. It was a homebred, but I think Secretariat. I was with my stepfather who treated him, and he had, of course, as we all know now, he had a boil. You couldn't put the bit in his mouth 3 days before the Derby, and it was just like, gosh, did they have to scratch this horse? And coming off his 2-year-old campaign and 2-year-old champion, to think that this horse could scratch. And, finally he got better. And literally 2 days before the Derby, it looked like he may not run. And for that to happen and be a part of that was just marvelous. And that's been a long time, but what a memory.
Yeah, what a memory. What a horse. Secretariat 1973, Lucian Lauren, Ron Turcotte, Meadow Stable.
Right.
And obviously now the greatest to ever do it, right?
Absolutely. He was something to see.
Yeah, so special. Ryan, listen, it's always a delight to catch up, and it's been wonderful to take a trip down memory lane. Love that winning colors story. Just wonderful stuff, my friend. All the best.
Well,
enjoy the Derby.
But
before I let you go, I have to get it. Go right ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, back when I face planted in the mud puddle, we dressed a little differently then. Had the gray slacks, the Keeneland tie, the blue shirt, and boom, down I went.
Good old winning colors, and winning colors week here on HRRN, presented by Keeneland Sales. Ryan, before I let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you for a winner in today's Kentucky Derby. You said it would be one of the Keeneland grads, so which one are you picking?
Oh, God. I'm going to go with Larry Demerit just for fun.
Wow, what a great story that would be.
I just think it's a great story.
Yep.
And he's a good friend.
Larry from the Bahamas, and
right.
It would be great to see Larry pick up that victory. He's easy to cheer for, isn't he?
He certainly is.
Ryan, enjoy the Kentucky Derby. Appreciate the visit as always. Great to hear your voice, and enjoy every moment of this afternoon.
I will certainly do it, and you as well, my friend.
All right, Ryan Mahan here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, helping to wrap up Winning Colors Week. How about that story? And he wrote down a word on his page when he was looking at his notes, and he said maybe a word that would be better in referring to a female dog when he referred to Winning Colors as a baby like that. But boy, was she! And you wonder, is it that attitude that helped make her so good? I think it had to play a role as she made her way throughout her career and beat the boys in the Santa Anita Derby, beat the boys in the Kentucky Derby, and then that memorable Breeders' Cup distaff at Churchill Downs with Winning Colors and Personal Ensign running her down in the shadow of the wire. Two of the all-time greats right there, Personal Ensign and Winning Colors. And my thanks to Keeneland Sales for all of their support and helping to bring Winning Colors Week to life here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Coming up next, I'll get you ready for hour number 2 right after this week's edition of Calling All 3-Year-Olds, presented by Spendthrift. Bobby Newman will do the honors. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed for Sales, Kentucky.
The Claiming Crown is returning to Churchill Downs Saturday, November 16th. Make plans to be part of the Claiming Horse version of the Breeders' Cup, showcasing 8 Claiming Crown races offering a minimum of $100,000. Each race will also offer a Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund purse supplement for registered Kentucky breds.
An invaluable goes all the way up top to win it a length and a half.
Eligibility request deadline for the Claiming Crown at Churchill Downs is Saturday, October 26th. Learn more at claimingcrown.com.
Retirement can be scary, but only if you're not prepared. That's why AARP created thisispretirement.org. Because unless you've already retired, you're in pretirement, and you still have time to plan. Learn about retirement savings options, potential tax breaks, and how you can build savings over time. Visit thisispretirement.org for free resources to help you customize your action plan and feel the retirement fear disappear. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Trainer Talk, presented by Fasig-Tipton.
Please join me in welcoming Hall of Fame trainer Todd Fletcher.
Hall of Fame trainer Nick Zito on Trainer Talk. Welcome Hall of Famer Bob Baffert to the program. Hall of Fame trainer Shug McGahee, nice enough to spend some time with us. Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott here on Trainer Talk.
Dual Hall of Fame trainer Mark Cassie.
Trainer Talk, the biggest names in horse racing. Wednesdays, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Sirius 162, XM 207, and streaming live at horseracingradio.net.
They're all in line. And they're off.
Spendthrift Farm presents Calling All 3-Year-Olds with Bobby Newman.
Well, today's the day we've all been waiting for. It's Kentucky Derby 150. Even though we've known for 2 weeks who the top 20 points qualifiers were, this week wasn't without drama. It started off last Saturday with the post-position draw. Derby favorites Fierceness and Sierra Leone both drew well, but Fountain of Youth winner Dornoch has the burden of drawing the dreaded inside post. Additionally, Connections for Endlessly ultimately decided to run the Jeff Ruby champ in the Derby rather than their original plan of competing in the American turf. The Kentucky Derby will be his first ever race on dirt. Then some bad news hit Tuesday afternoon. Lexington Stakes victor Encino suffered a soft tissue strain in his right front leg following a routine morning gallop. It's not career-threatening, but it will force him to miss about 30 days of training as well as the Derby. So with his withdrawal, a spot opened up for John Ennis's Epic Ride. Jockey Adam Beschizza has ridden him in all 5 career starts and will once again be aboard later today. Encino scratch from post 9, which means numbers 10 through 20 slide in one spot, allowing Epic Ride into post position 20. Now it's time to put him in the gate and find out who the 2024 Kentucky Derby winner will be. I'll be back with this week's top 5 list right after this word from Spendthrift.
Looking for an exciting classic winner to breed to in 2024? Look no further than Mo Donegal. A leading 2-year-old of his class, Mo Donegal won the Grade 2 Remsen Stakes to close out his juvenile campaign before going on to win the Grade 2 Wood Memorial and Grade 1 Belmont Stakes as a 3-year-old, joining Nyquist as classic winners by Uncle Mo.
And it will be Mo Donegal to win the Test of the Champion, the Belmont Stakes.
Mo Donegal's first foals are arriving now and receiving rave reviews. Get the classic chromosomes. Mo Donegal, standing at Spendthrift.
This week's top 5 list of Derby contenders looks like this. Number 5, Just a Touch. Lightly raced, but very talented. He gets better and better with each start. Number 4, Mystic Dan. Very troubled trip in the Arkansas Derby, but he ran on well. The added distance ought to help him. Number 3 is Fierceness. The 2-year-old champ crushed him in the Florida Derby and is clearly fastest when he runs one of his good ones. He is the logical favorite. Number 2, Forever Young. The Japan-based runner is undefeated despite shipping all over the world. Now it's on to Kentucky Derby time. And number 1, Sierra Leone. Impressive score in the Bluegrass. An honest pace in the Derby would make him very tough to beat. That's your Calling All 3-Year-Old segment presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.
My thanks to Bobby Newman and to Spendthrift for making those Calling All 3-Year-Old segments possible leading up to this year's Kentucky Derby. We're going to find out the answers to all of those questions coming up just before 7 o'clock Eastern Time this afternoon. Update to the poll question here. I'm asking you to share your Kentucky Derby superfecta. Tell me your top 4 finishers in this year's Derby. You can go to @HRRN on our Twitter page. You can do it on Facebook, Horse Racing Radio Network. Post your top 4 horses there. Or you can email the show, and that's what Tom has done. Tom in St. Louis says, fierceness is as unbeatable as Barbaro. He likes Domestic Spending, he likes Forever Young, and he likes Mystic Dan as his top 4. Great story here from LT in Louisville, who refers to Chip Woolley. Remember, we were talking about Chip Woolley and Mind That Bird. Jennie Rees shared her thoughts on that fun Kentucky Derby. LT says he met Chip Woolley at the VFW in Louisville, and he bought around. He took pictures with everybody. Just had a big time with Chip Woolley. LT, appreciate that email. Tom, thanks for the information or your top 4 finishers, your Derby Superfecta. Keep those coming at HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. A couple of Facebook comments here. Dawn on Facebook says, just a touch, fierceness, Honor Marie, and Catching Freedom, her top 4. Chris will go with Sierra Leone, just a touch, Domestic Product, and Just Steel as the Derby Superfecta. Here's the updated odds for you. In case you're wondering, we're still 9 hours, 59 minutes, and 34 seconds away from the start of this year's 150th Run for the Roses. Number 1, Dornoch, 21-1 currently. Remember, wagering is open. Number 2, Sierra Leone, 9-2. Number 3, Mystic Dan is 16. Number 4, Catching Freedom, 8-1. Number 5, Catalytic, 34-1. Number 6, Just Steel is 25. Number 7, Honor Marie, 12-1. Just a Touch, number 8, is 11-1. Remember, Encino was scratched. T.O. Password, one of 2 Japanese runners in the race, 50-1. Forever Young, the more highly regarded of those 2 from Japan, 7-1. Number 12, Track Phantom, is 40-1. West Saratoga, 28. Endlessly, number 14, 45-1. Number 15, Domestic Product, is 31. Grand Mo the First, number 16, 47-1. Fierceness is your 3-1 favorite with just under 10 hours to post time. Number 18, Stronghold, 32-1. Number 19, Resilience, the Wood Memorial winner, 27-1. And number 20, Society Man, is 51-1. Epic Ride, number 21, drew in off of the also eligible list with the scratch of Encino. He is 49-1. And those are the updated Derby odds as it sits here just after 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Coming back with hour number 2, it kicks off with jockey Joel Rosario, features Nick Zito, and it features Hall of Famer John Velazquez. The Hall of Fame, second hour of the program coming up right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of the Equine Forum, a Derby morning edition of the program, all presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, happy to have you with me. I always tell you that this day, Derby Day, is like Christmas with horses, and I continue to say that every year because it really is. An incredible card coming up at Churchill Downs, highlighted by that 150th running of the Run for the Roses, and it is going to be spectacular. If you missed any portion of the first hour of the program, looking back on some of the previous Kentucky Derbies and remembering the great winning colors as we continue to celebrate Winning Colors Week here on the network, all presented by Keeneland Sales. All you have to do is head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast whenever you have some time, and you can do that too on every podcast platform. Going to continue to talk about this year's Kentucky Derby with my next guest, and what a ride it has been for this gentleman, and not just this year, not just leading up to this year's Kentucky Derby, but throughout his entire career. His name is Joe Rosario, and in August he is going to join so many legends of the sport with a plaque in Saratoga Springs, New York, in the Hall of Fame, and that is a tremendous honor. He is one of the classiest guys I know, and he's here on the Equine Forum with me this morning. Joel, happy Derby Day, my friend.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Very appreciate it.
When you got the news that you were going to be inducted into this year's Hall of Fame as a member of this year's Hall of Fame class, what was that like?
Oh, unbelievable. I mean, it was, I was like, as a young age that I am and be riding, and, I didn't expect it was going to be, that fast like that, and, it's just very amazing, and very thankful to all the people that really, because I got there because of them. So I really appreciate all of the people that they give me that opportunity and that horses together.
How did you get the news?
I got the news through my agent, and then he told me I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that was it was very good, very, very, very special.
Extremely special. And I told you, we talk about this a lot. You had to make a decision at one point in your life whether you want to pursue a career in baseball and try to make a living doing that, or whether you wanted to become a jockey. And whenever I look at your resume, and now that I see you as a Hall of Famer, I'm telling you, man, you made the right call.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, I think we did, huh?
And that was a serious thing with you. We're not kidding around, right? You were actually thinking about potentially being a baseball player.
Oh, for sure. I grew up in the Dominican Republic, and since after I got off school, I always go to the play to practice the baseball, and I thought I was gonna be a baseball player. That's what I thought I was gonna do.
Do you ever think how much different your life would have turned out potentially if you decided to go that direction?
Yeah, I mean, it just we're doing really well with the horses, but I love the sport. I like the baseball, and I also like the horses. But it's something, me growing up in the Dominican Republic, everybody there, we all want to be a baseball player. So we love the sport.
When you first started riding races, Joel, was there a moment when you said, you know what, I think I'm really good at this, and I think I made the right decision becoming a jockey? Was there a moment like that for you?
Yes. After I started winning races and doing really well, and I thought that was my think the right choice.
There's no doubt about it. Have you already started to kind of put a few thoughts together for your acceptance speech in August?
We're working on that. Yeah, we're working on that too. Yeah, that's very, very exciting, and that's just unbelievable. No?
Yeah, it certainly is. Let's focus on the Kentucky Derby. I mentioned the 150th running coming up this afternoon. You are a member of that fraternity, too, as a winner of the Kentucky Derby. You did it in 2013 with Orb. I want to talk to you about this year's mount, Track Phantom, in a minute, but let's start with Orb. Take me back to that day, and what do you remember about winning the Derby with Orb?
Oh, man, it was unbelievable. I remember, it was a raining day, and was a lot of water around, but it was a very great experience, and just to be at the Derby and then I have a chance to win at the races, it was unbelievable. So it was just that day was a dream come true for me, and really, really excited, and man, that was a special day, for me in my career.
It seems like whenever I, hear from other athletes in other sports, you'll hear from a baseball player that's now a highly accomplished professional, and they will talk about when they were kids and playing in the backyard. They would always picture themselves hitting that home run with 2 strikes in the bottom of the ninth to win the World Series or whatever it might be. Did you envision yourself, even before you started riding, winning a race like the Kentucky Derby?
I mean, I always watched the races from the Dominican Republic, since I know the horse racing and TV, like ESPN and stuff like that when it comes to the time a year in the Derby. But I never thought in my life I was going to be in the race. So it's just, everything come true for me, and very blessed. And, it just never thought in a million years I was going to be racing in the Kentucky Derby.
Do you ever go back and watch the replay of that win with Orb?
Yes, many times.
Really?
Yes.
It never gets old, does it?
Never gets old. That's right.
Now he came from far back. Track Phantom this year has some early speed. He has the ability to be close to the pace. Orb, you had to weave through traffic. What do you remember about the trip you got with Orb, and how much different do you expect it to be coming up Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, it's just Track Phantom is a different, a little more tactical horse. I mean, with a little more speed than Orb, and he's a different horse. Because it's probably be closer in a race than Orb was before. So, we're expecting a big race for him, and then we'll see how it is. We're going against all the best 3-year-old in the country, and but he had talent, and then he's a really good horse, and hopefully that horse he give us another Derby. That would be amazing.
You've been aboard him in each of his last 3 starts, and the first time you rode him, he won the Lecomte. Then he was second in the Risen Star, 4th last time out in the Louisiana Derby after setting the pace. Steve Asmussen is putting blinkers on him for the first time in the Kentucky Derby. Did you have anything to do with that decision, or is that was strictly Steve saying, we're going to try this?
Yeah, I remember Steve asked me, what do you think about that race? Last race he ran, and I told Steve, maybe trying to put a little set of blinker to see how he could look around a little bit, but in the races, but see how the he go with that with the blinkers on, and then it seemed like he like him, and we'll see what happens.
What makes you believe that he's a 1.25 mile horse?
I mean, we don't know. I mean, they all go 1.25 miles for the first time, and he's tactical horse. He's focused. Is he focused on the race? I mean, he has the talent to go 1.25 miles. Yeah.
Now we're going to find out coming up right before 7 o'clock Eastern time. Track Phantom 20-1 on the morning line, and I am visiting with his jockey Joel Rosario here on Derby Morning. Joel, let's go back to your very first Kentucky Derby. Track Phantom will be your 13th mount in the race. Your first came in 2010 with Make Music for Me. You ended up finishing 4th that day. What do you remember about that Derby experience?
I mean, very, very, a unique experience for me because never been in the Derby before. And I remember the horse for Alessa Barbara in California. Then, I used to ride the horse in California, and then she said, we're going to go to the Derby with the horses. So it was very exciting for me, and we make it there, and the horse ran well. I think he finished 4th, like you say, and it was a very, very unique experience for me, and then to be the first time in the Derby, it was amazing, and it was for me, and I've never been big races like the Derby, and it was amazing, to how many people go to the Derby, and like when you get inside that gate, and then like everybody, they getting loud and stuff like that. That was like it was amazing for me because I never seen something like that before in my life.
What do you remember about walking into the paddock
to meet your mount for your first Kentucky Derby, and then coming onto the track to the playing in my old Kentucky home. Take me through that scenario.
Oh, that's unbelievable. I mean, just it is, even, when you start listening to the song and, like, everything, you just get chill on you because it's just, it's just amazing. It's just a really, really great experience that you have, and, we never forget about that. Just, just amazing what they do with the racing. So just, it is very, I would like it a lot.
Put me in the saddle with you for a minute, Joel, because as you know, you see me, right? I'm a bigger guy. I've never ridden a race before. The next one will be my first, so certainly never ridden in the Kentucky Derby. When you turn for a home in the Derby, or let's start with the starting gate. When you're getting ready to break out of the starting gate, describe that for me. What is it like for a rider? Is it loud? Is it chaotic? Is there a moment of silence? What's it like?
I mean, it's as soon as that last horse is going to go to the gate to break, it's just unbelievable. The people are going insane, and it's really loud. And it is, for somebody as a rider that never been into the Derby, it's really a unique experience because it is insane. How the people go after when the last horse is going to get back to break. So it's just like unbelievable.
Do you hear the crowd as you come out of the gate and you're running through the stretch for the first time?
Yeah, we hear the crowd when we get in when we get by the last horse to get to the gate, and right away when we break, and it's just amazing.
I remember talking to Mike Smith about this one time, and he told me when he won with Giacomo, he said that it was so loud as he was coming down the stretch. And then when he hit the finish line, he described it as a really almost an out-of-body experience where when he realized he won, he said all that noise went away for a split second, and there was silence. And then, boom, it just came back to him again, and it was so loud. Did you experience anything like that with Orb?
Yeah, I mean, it's something very similar to that. Just, it's just amazing. Like I say again, how the crowd goes, after they get out of the gate, after that race finish, and just, the whole race. When you turn it for home, and then you still can hear the crowd going. It's just, very unbelievable.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be. Joel Rosario here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, the newest member of Horse Racing's Hall of Fame, and that is something I am very proud to say, having known Joel for a very long time. I told you, Joel, when you got inducted, that you are not only a Hall of Fame jockey, but a Hall of Fame person, and I love the way you've conducted yourself both on and off the racetrack.
Thank you for that, Mike. I appreciate it.
As you get ready for the Kentucky Derby later today, how do you prepare? You're obviously a veteran now. How do you prepare to ride the Kentucky Derby?
I mean, just like a normal day, like I do it every day. I mean, another day. I know a lot is timing and a lot of, very exciting because of the Derby, and everybody that go to the Derby, any jock or anybody, they want to, we want to win every race, but when they come to the Derby, everybody wants to win the Derby. So but I prepare myself just like a normal day, normal routine, and do exactly what I do every day, and that's how I do it.
We talked about your first Kentucky Derby and how you approached that day, what that was like for you. What advice do you give to young riders who are going to be making their first start in the Kentucky Derby?
I mean, my advice is just go and go ahead and ride the horse, and it's gonna be a very unique experience, and anybody never been in there, and just like prepare yourself and just be like as a rider, you want to be just there like it's a normal day, because they can come to be a lot of pressure for you. Then, rider, they get, you get nervous and stuff like that, because it's very, insane when you see all the people, the crowd, and everything, So just, it's a very unique experience for somebody who's never been before.
Doesn't matter if it's your first or your 21st. The Kentucky Derby experience is as special as it ever is. And, Joel, I really appreciate the time here today, my friend. All the best coming up on Saturday afternoon, and safe trip every time you get a leg up. And congratulations again on that Hall of Fame.
Oh, Mike, thanks so much. Appreciate you. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
You're the best, buddy. Joel Rosario here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. When I say there are people in this game like Joel, like John Velazquez, like Javier Castellano, and I'm going to leave some. If I start naming everybody's names, I'd be here for the next 2 hours. As good a person as they are a rider, a trainer, whatever they do in this sport. And Joel is certainly one of those. And really excited for him to be in the Hall of Fame, and super pumped up to see him do his thing with Track Phantom. The blinkers are going to enhance his speed, and that is one of the things for those of us handicapping this race and wondering if Fierceness can duplicate what we saw in the Florida Derby. Fierceness is a speed horse, too. He likes to be up front. So with the blinkers on, with a good break, Track Phantom's going to be right out there. And he has the speed to stick with Fierceness early. And he's not the only one. So you have to wonder, does Fierceness get the same type of trip he got in the Florida Derby? I guess if other horses get into trouble, other speed horses, he could. But he also has to break clean. So that is a big question mark. And we talked about Sierra Leone. Does he get the clean trip from far back? All of those questions are going to need to be answered, and they will be answered shortly before 7 o'clock Eastern in the Run for the Roses. When I come back, it's time for this week's edition of Kentucky Bred. Then you're going to hear from Hall of Fame jockey John Velazquez, who is going to be aboard Fierceness in this afternoon's Kentucky Derby. That is all ahead right here on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The 2024 Spring Meet at Churchill Downs kicks off April 27th with a slate of exciting race day events leading up to the 150th Kentucky Derby. Following the Kentucky Derby, Churchill Downs Spring Meet continues with live racing throughout May and June, including the Grade 1 Stephen Foster on June 29th. With 50 stakes races worth over $25 million and purses powered by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, you will not want to miss the Spring Meet at Churchill Downs. You can learn more about each day and see available ticket options by visiting churchilldowns.com.
From a world-class team of equine industry leaders with international breadth that honors history, tradition, and the sport comes business advisory expertise, providing strategic tax compliance and operational services with innovation and determined persistence. Located in the heart of horse country, Dean Dorton is revered for visionary guidance in equine accounting, tax, and business consulting. Dean Dorton. Tax, technology, outsourced accounting. Visit DeanDorton.com for all your equine operation needs.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
It was a wild race here in the Woodhaven, and here comes the run from Good Lord Laurie, who's now in the clear. It's the big Torpedo just sticking his neck out, but Good Lord Laurie is ranging up on the outside, trying to join them as Wally World. The big Torpedo, here's Good Lord Laurie to push on by. Good Lord Laurie wins the Woodhaven.
Good Lord Laurie, the son of Darley Stallion Hard Spun, ran his record to a perfect 2 for 2 with that win in the Woodhaven Stakes last weekend. A victory which makes him your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Darley Stallion Hard Spun, 3 stakes winners in the month of April. Of all the stallions in the U.S., only Justify, Into Mischief, and Practical Joke had more than Hard Spun. Just imagine. Learn more about Hard Spun and all the Darley Stallions by visiting DarleyAmerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Strike the gold on the outside with Chris Hadley taking command. Along the inside, best paddling of the second spot. Main Minister is third. Coming 70 yards to the finish and far away from the rail. Strike the gold wins the Derby by a length and a half. In
Kentucky bred Strike the Gold and Go for Gin, giving Hall of Fame trainer Nick Zito a Derby double in 1991 and 1994, respectively. Dave Johnson had the call of both races. And as we continue to celebrate the 150-year anniversary of the Run for the Roses, it just wouldn't seem right to spend this Derby morning without a visit with Nick Zito, who is a big part of that Derby history. And with that, it is time now for this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation, presented by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development and Breeders Incentive Funds. And before we say hello to Nick here this morning, I remind you that awards up to $3,000 a race is available from the Kentucky Breeders Incentive Fund for winning an allowance or maiden special weight race anywhere in the USA or at Woodbine Racetrack. And awards up to $4,000 a race is available for winning a non-graded stakes anywhere in the USA or at Woodbine. And trust me, that is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm going to tell you about more incentives right after this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation with two-time Kentucky Derby winning trainer Nick Zito. Nick, good morning, my friend.
Hey, good morning, Mike. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, always great to hear your voice and catch up, and happy Derby Day. Nick, when you hear the words Kentucky Derby, what things come to Nick Zito's mind?
Other than Icebox finishing second, it would have been great. I would have had 3. No, it's and a couple other favorites I've had in there, but no, obviously, look, the Kentucky Derby is the deal. It's now an event, official event, and more importantly, it's just been a great tradition for 150 years, and it's been part of America, Americana, and it's the one that you have to say. Like everybody else, it's for some whatever reason. And by the way, glad Joel is in the Hall of Fame, well deserved, a great jockey. But he'll tell you too, when you win that, it's like a different thing you have on your resume, and it's a special race.
Let's go back, Nick. I want to talk to you about Strike the Gold and Go for Jim, but let's go back to your first Kentucky Derby in 1990, the year before you won with Strike the Gold. 36 red. What do you remember about that day?
Well, Mike, the Derby has changed since then, and you've been doing this a long time now, and I don't know if you remember, but I remember I went into Wagner's, and it was like Christmas. That was my first Kentucky Derby. 36 red, and I got to know all the people in Louisville, the great people in Kentucky, and they kind of, for whatever reason, I guess it's safe to say now, I've kind of been adopted, and I enjoyed, the fabric of the community, the way the Derby was to them. It was absolutely special, and Louisville being the place it is, where it's just the regular people you find, and it's, it hit me really strong, and it was something I always wanted to do. My good friend Al Michaels, great sports announcer in '91, when we did win it the next year, he said you could see it was like etched in stone in his face. So I went around my whole, I was on a racetrack since I'm a kid, as you know. Went to Keeneland at a young age and went back to New York. It was inside of me, and Al brought that out and came out. There's a lot of emotion, as you know. I guess you could say at times I'm an emotional guy, but I brought a lot of theatrical stuff to the Derby that year, and a lot of sports writers, liked it, and some were like whatever, but most of them liked it, and it was a great deal.
I always say that the Kentucky Derby is better when Nick Zito is a part of it, and I hope we get to see that again one day, Nick. I say the same thing about Wayne Lucas. When Wayne's involved, it's better, right?
Yeah, I guess, yes.
It is.
I would say so. I would say so. And I don't mean that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean that wholeheartedly. It's just better when you and Wayne and Bob Baffert, when you guys are involved, it's just a better experience.
Well, I think the three of us are not shy. That's for sure. You know, when it comes to when it comes to talking, or it comes to whatever, you know, we kind of, you know, I always embraced the moment. So it wasn't. I didn't make it like work. You know, maybe you could be a little intense the first year you're there, but as I got along, and then once I got past, like after Strike the Goal one, it was okay with me. I didn't care anymore. You know, I took as many questions as you want and whatever it is, and I enjoyed a lot of the guys too. You know, like yourself and Pete, may rest his soul in peace. And there's so many, you know, guys I really enjoyed, you know, on the scene, and girls and women that, you know, sports writers. You had Jennie on a little while ago. I actually got to enjoy it, if you can believe it. Now, I did get a little, when we had the five in the Derby, I had police tape, if you remember.
Yes.
I had five in the Derby, so
yeah.
You have to concentrate. The one thing I learned about the Kentucky Derby, and I always tell all the trainers that you have to pay attention. You can't get wrapped up in everything else because, you know, there's an event here, somebody wants to talk to you, this one wants to do this one. And I always had all eyes on my horse to make sure everything was okay, because you could get distracted. You could. So that's something that you have to definitely pay attention.
Take me back to the moment when Strike the Gold crossed the finish line beneath those twin spires.
Well, it was incredible. I looked up at the heavens, and, you know, I said, show me the way, whatever it was. And I felt that interview I did that night. I said, you know, I felt like I was in God's living room for a while. And, of course, Andy Beyer, you know, he said, yes, just for a little while. Whatever it was. But, you know, one of his I like Andy. I always, you know, Wayne nicknamed him, and I just kept using it forever. He didn't like it, but he got to like it, because Wayne used to call him the high priest, because he would walk around, you know, with the quotes and everything. But we turned out to be good friends, Andy and I. And he's, you know, geez, I got to buy a figures, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
you know, but yeah, it was. That's how it felt. It felt like God invited me into his living room for a couple of seconds.
He invited you again 3 years later with Go for
Gin.
Gin.
Yeah,
was the experience different?
Well, I told everybody how great the country was then, which was great. I still get a lot. And you know, the first time I had the honor. I'll tell you folks out there to laugh about before honors humility. So this is a really good story. So General Schwarzkopf was in 91. He was the Grand Marshal, whatever it was. He had just come back from the war, and we got to be friendly. What a great human being he is, a great general. So I'm in the Galt House, and Tom, the manager of the Galt House, writes me a note. Louisville likes two guys, General Schwarzkopf and Nicky Z. So now, Calumet bred that horse. So I got a Calumet jacket on. So I don't know what floor I was on. So I come out, and there's an older gentleman there. I got the Calumet jacket on. So next morning, after Kentucky Derby, and he goes, 1, please. So he thought I was the elevator operator. So you talk about, you know, high to low. So before honors humility, that was the next morning. So that was a great Derby. And, of course, in 94, had some more theatrical, you know, things happened in the ABC coverage, I think, did it then. And it's just the Kentucky Derby. It's what everybody wants to do, let's face it.
94,
everybody wants
Go
to
for
do
Gin. Nobody was, I won't say nobody was giving him a chance, but Holy Bull was the big story in 94. And, Nick, I got to tell you, I was never a Go for Gin fan because I was a massive Holy Bull fan. Holy Bull just didn't show up that day. But I was so happy to see you back in the winner's circle in 94.
Well, Mike, let me just say this to you. This is what's going on. I like fierceness. Mike Rapoli sent me a couple of horses. You know, I don't think they're fierceness, but, you know, who knows? If I keep at it, you know, he might, you know, who knows? But anyway, it's like everything else. You know, he's kind of like Holy Bull, and everything has to go just right, you know?
Yep.
You know, I looked at something the other day. I was talking to Mad Dog yesterday on the radio, and Chris Russo, and I was saying, you know, he already knew. I said, you know, here's a horse. He's breaking from 17. So that, you know, you would say, gee, that's good. He's in the clear. You know, Johnny will get a good break, everything or whatever. And Johnny will do all those wonderful things. And say, okay, you know, he should be fine. But then post 17 is 0 for 44. Horses that broke from 17 are 0 for 44.
Yep.
You see what I mean? So, you know, and then, of course, he was a 2-year-old champ. Street Sense won, and so did, what's his name? You know, Nyquist. So he got that going again. What I'm trying to say is everything has to go just right. And then if you look at Sierra Leone, which our record, say, well, okay, what's your record? Well, Strike the Goal, is the last Bluegrass winner and Kentucky Derby winner.
Yeah.
That was 1991. Now, 100 horses have won the Derby that run in the Bluegrass. True. But the last one that actually won it was Strike the Goal, and that's Sierra Leone's going to have to do that. That's 30 years ago.
Yep. Hard to believe.
And, you know, it's hard to believe. So,
well, and Nick, you talk about how difficult it is. Everything has to go right to win the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah,
the stars really have to align. Let's look at a couple of the horses you brought there that didn't win. Like for example, Louis Quatorze in 96. We know how good he turned out to be, right? But he didn't win the Derby. Birdstone, Belmont winner. He couldn't win the Derby, but he wins the Belmont. Yeah. It is incredibly difficult.
Oh, absolutely. And then, listen, I had Bellany Road, who was favorite, and he actually got hurt in the race.
Yep.
And, you know, I had Icebox, got stopped cold. He was moving. Tom Durkin will tell you. He was moving faster than anyone. And he got stopped cold. Lascano was a young jockey at the time. He got stopped cold. And I don't know why, when I put his leg up, I assumed, because he won the Florida Derby, he knows how my horses run. They run in the clear. And for some reason, he picked the inside. You know, he was making that winning move, and he wanted to save ground, and it just stopped cold on him. He might have won the Kentucky Derby. So, you know, it's a very difficult deal. Now, the two horses on paper, if you look at it, they look outstanding. Sierra Leone and, of course, Fierceness. They look outstanding on paper. But, again, it's not on paper. Then, once again, we might have a wet track. Can't tell God, don't let it rain, right? Yep. Last time I looked at Mystic Dan, my God, superior mud horse, you know. So, and of course, it looks like both horses will handle the mud, you know, the two favorites. But, again, everything has to go just right. And, look, I'll tell you one thing. I'll steal a line from the late Billy Turner. Great trainer, trained Seattle Slew, remember?
Yeah, yeah.
And someone said to him, "Hey Billy, you know, you got a lot of pressure on you. You know, Seattle Slew. You know, this is whatever." And Billy said, "No, the pressure is when you don't have Seattle Slew." So I'd rather have Fierceness. I guess I'd rather have Sierra Leone. You know, we'll go from there, I guess, right?
Sierra Leone is going to have I think, a similar type of layout during the race that Strike the Gold had. Strike the Gold was a closer. He came from far back. Yes. I think he was 12th early in that Derby. Sierra Leone's going to be in the same position. He's going to have to navigate his way through a lot of traffic, much like Strike the Gold.
Yeah, he's got a great jockey in Tyler. You know that. We all know that, right?
Yep.
Tyler Gaffleone, he's got a great jockey in him. So that'll definitely help him. And, you know, and, of course, Johnny is Johnny Velazquez. So I think the two of them are fine that way, right? They should be okay. You know, they got the two jockeys. But luck is a big factor. Luck is a big factor, right or wrong.
Right or wrong. That is Nick Zito, ladies and gentlemen, one of the all-time greats, more than 2,000 wins to his credit, and hopefully he gets Derby win number 3 on his resume in the years to come. Nicky, it's always so much fun to catch up with you and spend some time. And as I said when I reached out to you and asked you to join me, it wouldn't be Kentucky Derby morning without a visit from Nick Zito, so I really appreciate it, my friend.
Well, it's my pleasure. You do a great job. One of the best, if not, the best. You're tremendous and for the business. You come a long way, Mike. And listen, you choose a good place to stay in Kentucky.
Amen to that, brother. Amen
Great
to that.
State. Great state.
Nicky, all the best. Enjoy the Kentucky Derby, my friend. It was great going down memory lane with you.
I'm glad you got Johnny coming on, and that's great. Sounds good, buddy. Thank you.
All right, buddy. You got it. Nick Zito here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Boy, wouldn't it be great to see Nick Zito back in the Kentucky Derby again? When I say that, and I've covered a lot of Kentucky Derbies, I'm very fortunate to be able to have done that. Very blessed. And when a guy like Nick Zito or Wayne Lucas, and even Bob Baffert, like him or hate him, when he's involved, the event is just better. It's like that with all sports. When your stars are involved, I don't care what it is, the Super Bowl, the World Series, the event is just better. And that's not to take anything away from any of the other trainers that are involved. Todd Pletcher is a huge star. It's better when Todd Pletcher is involved. Brad Cox, look at what he's doing. Chad Brown. It's better when you have your big names involved. But there's no replacing a guy like Nick Zito. His personality, his enthusiasm, his passion, his love for the sport of thoroughbred racing and for the Kentucky Derby. My thanks to Nick for taking time here this morning. Always great. Join me next Saturday here on the Equine Forum for another edition of Kentucky Bred presented by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development and Breeders Incentive Funds. I can say that. Providing awards up to $5,000 and $7,500 for winning a Grade 1, Grade 2, or Grade 3 race anywhere in the USA and in multiple countries. And awards, how about this, of $200,000 allocated to the top 20 claiming horses in Kentucky with the most claiming wins in the Bluegrass State. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win with Kentucky Breds. Coming up next, it is a visit with the Hall of Famer John Velazquez, the man who will be aboard the Derby favorite Fierceness. He caught up with Bobby and Jude earlier this week on our Derby Countdown shows. That's next. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Fans, today is the fabled Run for the Roses. In SoCal, there's no better place to watch and wager on the Kentucky Derby than right here at Santa Anita Park. We have a great day at the track as well, with 11 live races and plenty of entertainment like the Californian Vintage Motorcycle Show and the wildly popular Michelada Rumble. Both are held in the infield along with live music and a family fun zone. On the trackside, we'll have a fashion show and contest, and we will be offering a special Derby Day package that includes admission, a program, parking, and a collector's item t-shirt featuring Santa Anita Derby winner Stronghold. Details are on santanita.com. That t-shirt will also be available for sale at the First Bet Information Center for $20. Come out and root on the hometown favorite in the biggest race of the year on a very big day here as well. The top jockeys, the top trainers, the Kentucky Derby simulcast, and fantastic entertainment are right here at the great race place, Santa Anita Park.
A reputation of excellence isn't built overnight. Day by day, year by year, decade after decade. For over 100 years, Claiborne's commitment to quality has led to unrivaled success. 10 Kentucky Derby winners, 6 Triple Crown winners, 17 Horses of the Year, 23 Hall of Famers, and over 300 champions. Building on the past, building for the future. Claiborne Farm. The tradition continues.
In 1993, Dr. John West showed that EIPH occurs during exercise when the blood vessels in the lung rupture. This is due to stress caused by high blood pressures on the inside of the vessel and strong suction forces on the outside. Only flare strips and Lasix, used together or alone, have ever been clinically proven to reduce EIPH. Lasix works by reducing the high internal vessel pressure And flare strips work by reducing the suction forces on the outside of the vessel. See the science at flarestrips.com.
There are thrills around every turn at Gulfstream Park during the Royal Palm Meet with live horse racing action Thursday through Sunday and simulcast opportunities 7 days a week. Come out and enjoy weekend stakes races, including the Royal Palm Juvenile on the road to Royal Ascot. Take in the action from the Carousel Club or feast in Ten Palms Restaurant with an elevated view of the track. For stake schedules, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
It's Shackelford who still leads. Here's Nero on the outside, and Animal Kingdom is pouncing late on the John Velazquez. It's now Animal Kingdom on the outside who goes to lead for John Velazquez, and he's going clear by 2 lengths and running to the line. Animal Kingdom wins the Derby. Nero in second. In third came Mucho Macho Man. In fourth was Shackelford, and then Master of Hounds, Santiva, brilliant speed, and then Pants on Fire and Dialed In never got to them. It was Animal Kingdom for Graham Motion and John Velazquez, who took Derby 137.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, with you. A look back at John Velazquez and his first Kentucky Derby victory, the first of 3. Actually, he'll tell you he has 4 because he also rode Medina Spirit, who was disqualified, but 3 officially for John Velazquez. Animal Kingdom, Always Dreaming, and Authentic. Mark Johnson had the call right there that you just heard. That was a race you heard live with us here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, our first broadcast of the Kentucky Derby in 2011. Special moment for us, special moment for Johnny. And earlier this week, Johnny stopped by to visit with Jude Feld and Bobby Newman on our Derby Countdown show.
John Velazquez, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
John, well, I was going to ask you what you're doing on Saturday, but you're going to be a busy guy on Saturday afternoon. First of all, going back, you already have 3 Derby wins under your belt. Animal Kingdom getting the job done, Always Dreaming, Authentic getting the job done just a few years ago. Your first, I believe your first Derby mount, was it 92 with Snappy Landing?
No, I think my first Derby mount was in 95.
Okay, 95.
Yeah.
What is different for you now going into the Kentucky Derby, now that you're a Hall of Famer and you've won it 3 times, as opposed to back then when you were still up and coming?
Well, it's different that I won 3 Kentucky Derbies officially 4 times past the wire first. And it's a lot better now, going into the Kentucky Derby, and especially riding this year's seriousness that there's no pressure.
It's hard to believe there'll be no pressure riding the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. There's still got to be some pressure, but is it something where you're experienced enough that it's not just any other race, but you kind of have to look at it like it's any other race?
Well, I kind of prepare myself in an everyday business anyway, and it doesn't matter, the value of the race or the value or the quality of the race. I believe that I should prepare myself for everyday races, not just the quality races. So, I believe that being prepared going into any race, I feel very comfortable and confident that I can get the job done, and hopefully the horse allows you to do the things you planning to do. You plan A, plan B, whatever it may be, that you can, the best job. Yeah. I would look at it like I never put any pressure on myself on the sense that, because it's a different race or a quality race or whatever it may be, I'm going to prepare myself just as much, to do the best job I can.
Your process is always to have several plans, and we had Kimura on this morning, and he was talking about plan A, B, and C, and it reminded me of you. I mean, you're always prepared. No matter what happens in a race, you have a thought about where you should be or what you should be doing, and that's one of the things I think that makes you so great is your process is excellent.
Yeah, and obviously that's part of the homework that you do, right? And you got to be prepared for anything that can change. When those gates open, you have your plan A, your plan B, plan C, your plan D, whatever it may be. But at least you have the process that you can change it as quickly as possible. And I think that's probably my best, trade, if you will. That I try to be prepared for anything that can happen in the race. And then again, I mean, obviously we are dependent on the horse, to respond for the things that you would like to do, and you go from there. But at least mentally, I know I'm prepared for whatever I need to change.
It seemed to me that you had a plan to give Fierceness some confidence in his Florida Derby race, and it really worked perfectly. Am I off base, or is that correct?
Well, I mean, the plan with him was, he was working really well into the race. So the plan for me, that if I was going to be in the lead, that I was not going to push him to be there, though, and then we talked about this on the paddock, though, and I was like, look, there's two speeds in the race, and I assume that, Paco's going to go from post number one, go to the lead, and it's another horse. The horse who finished second in the race, obviously, who came from 3/4, might show some speed, and then there was another horse, and Puerto Rican, he told me he was sending to the lead, or at least close to it. And so we talked to them in the paddock. We have a really good pulse, but after seeing the people warming up and the horses and prior to the race, I kind of changed my mind. It's like, see, they weren't warming up the way I thought they were going to do it, and I saw Paco didn't warm up his horse. I was like, oh, and I even told him, it's like, I guess you're not going to the lead, right? I prepared myself right from the gate that I'm going to come out running without overdoing, or putting too much pressure on my horse, to get to the lead. So all those things change while we are between the paddock and warming up the horses. You see how people are acting and warming up the horses. So you have to change, right at the moment. And the plan was, once I saw that, I'm going to come out running, and if he's up in the lead, it'll be great. So, and that's how he did it, and he did it easily, though. So it worked out really good.
Is he a horse that has to be up front, either on the lead or right there on the pace?
I don't think so. He's just been a horse that's been, close enough to the lead, and I think he relaxes really well. He's not a keen horse. So I think it's just about getting a good break out of there and get a position where he's comfortable and relaxed.
Yeah, that's what Todd said this morning. The break is crucial for him. If he doesn't break good, then he maybe gets a little discouraged or whatever. But if he gets out good, watch out.
Yes. I mean, I think that the break is probably the most important thing. I think we do have a good pose. Although we end up having a couple speed. I mean, another horse getting from there also. He seems to have a little speed as well. The California horse outside of me, he has a little speed too, but he kind of took him back a little bit last time and put it behind horses, and he seemed to run really well. So all those things got to go in place. So just break and get a position where I think he'll be comfortable, and I think we'll go from there.
Speaking with Hall of Fame jockey John Velazquez, inducted into the Hall of Fame back in 2012. Johnny, not shy about saying, yes, he won 3 derbies, but he actually won 4 derbies because Medina Spirit crossed the wire first, but unfortunately was disqualified from that win. All right, so now you have so much experience in this race. What would you, right now, John Velazquez, tell, a younger John Velazquez who was riding the Derby for maybe the first or second time? What do you know now that you didn't know back then about a race like this?
I'll tell you what, it's probably one of the most difficult races to ride because, it's the things that we do for the Derby and coming out of the gate, it can be really rough. Be prepared for it, though, because normally the amount of quarter, no one do. We will not do what we do for the Derby, though. Like a mile quarter, everybody comes out kind of easy and try to go as close as possible the first part and get your position little by little. And Derby is a different story. We all come out running to try to get a position first and then settle the horses. So, so it can be a little tough. So really do your homework and see where you want to land and try to do your best out of the gate.
Yeah, it's very crucial. The first quarter is usually pretty fast in the Derby, regardless of the rest of the fractions.
Exactly. Yes. So it's a tricky way to ride him out in the quarter that would normally would not do that in another race. Yeah.
Johnny, you mentioned doing your homework. You ride a whole lot of races on the undercard, and in fact, you ride the races after the Kentucky Derby as well on Saturdays. So, especially in those dirt races, how much are you paying attention to? Whether the inside or the outside is good, if the speed is holding, if the closers is doing well, things like that.
Part of the homework too, though, and you go race by race. How much water they put into the track, how the track is holding up. So everything is goes by race. So you do your homework, and then another thing you have to pay attention, obviously, is how the track is playing. So all those things, it gets into your mind, at least part of your homework that you have to do and make sure you pay attention how, the horses are. Fortunately for me, I get to ride a lot of races, so I get to see it, live, how the racetrack is playing.
Well, Johnny, we realize that you're really busy this week and appreciate everything that you and Ron Anderson, your agent, do as far as making this interview happen. Thank you so much for joining this morning, and best of luck this Saturday in the Derby, my friend. Nothing but a great trip for you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, that is Hall of Famer John Velazquez with Bobby Newman and Jude Feld on our Derby Countdown shows. You still have time to go back and listen to the podcast of each of those shows from Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning. Get yourself ready for the Kentucky Derby with several interviews with so many of the connections that are going to be represented later today. Make sure you check those out on our website, horseracingradio.net, and on every podcast platform. When I come back, I'll take a look at a couple dates in racing history as they apply to this Kentucky Derby weekend, and I'll get you ready for hour number 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
From a world-class team of equine industry leaders with international breadth that honors history, tradition, and the sport comes business advisory expertise, providing strategic tax compliance and operational services with innovation and determined persistence. Located in the heart of horse country, Dean Dorton is revered for visionary guidance in equine accounting, tax, and business consulting. Dean Dorton. Tax, technology, outsourced accounting. Visit DeanDorton.com for all your equine operation needs.
Live racing returns to Monmouth Park Saturday, May 11th with a 12:50 first post. Monmouth's 2023 season featured its highest average field size since 2015, the perfect recipe for a prolific payday. With a stakes race every Saturday and Sunday, plus the Win Early Pick 5, Monmouth Park is your summer place to profit. Attending on site? Lock in your odds with fixed odds wagering at Monmouth Park Racetrack. For more information, visit our website at monmouthpark.com.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart.
Heather's moment has arrived, and you just hope all that training pays off.
Heather lays down her purchase, but Randy rings it up as slowly as he can.
Uh-oh.
Yep, she's looking at the cigarettes.
There's nothing good back there.
Heather's arm is in motion, but she just grabs the gum off the counter.
That's a slick move.
Even Randy tips his cap to Heather. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally wants you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Quick update to the poll question here this morning, asking you to share your Kentucky Derby superfecta. John on X/Twitter says Fierceness, Catching Freedom, Honor Marie, and Forever Young, his top four. And again, these do not have to be in exact order. Steve on Twitter also says Sierra Leone, Mystic Dan, Catalytic, and West Saratoga. That would be one big superfecta if he's able to pull that one off with the addition of West Saratoga in there. And here's one more for you. Chris in Kentucky writes in and says, Fierceness doesn't hit the board. Mystic Dan is a lock if it's sloppy, but I don't know anything. The Baron of the Backstretch needs my takes like a hole in the head. I rewatched Bo Rail win on My That Bird, and it hits me like a Monster Energy drink every time. That's a great take. I love that one. Trust me, I could use some help, Chris. Keep them coming. I could use all the help I can get. The Kentucky Derby coming up just before 7 o'clock Eastern. My thanks to all the guests for making this show possible, at least the first 2 hours of the program. Plenty more to come in hour number 3, including the TwinSpires Triple Play with Joe Kristufek to kick things off. That is all ahead. Very, very busy morning on Derby Day 2024. Back right after a 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
A front-running score for Willie Shoemaker on swap in the 1955 Kentucky Derby.
Driving along the rail, and Dykes is driving on the outside. Majestic Prince is holding on by a head, and he wins it by a head. It's Secretariat moving away. He has it by 2.5. Sham, then on the outside, Our Native. At the wire, it's going to be Secretariat.
Hallie Steeble with Chris McGarren to the front, then twice back to second. Here's the finish. Hallie Steeble wins it by 3 parts of a length.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Real Quiet is a bit leg weary. Victory Gallop is trying. Here's the line. Real Quiet wins the 124th running of the Kentucky Derby.
It's a 3-horse total finish, and on the wire, it's Giacomo who has won the 131st Kentucky Derby.
American Pharaoh and Victor Espinoza have won the Kentucky Derby. Mage has taken the lead here as they come into the final 16, and it is going to be Mage to win the Kentucky Derby.
Now here's Mike Penna.
So many memorable moments in the 150 years of the Kentucky Derby. More history set to be made this afternoon shortly before 7 o'clock Eastern beneath those Twin Spires at Churchill Downs. Welcome back, Hour 3 of the Equine Forum, presented by Twin Spires. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, barreling toward the finish line with a loaded third hour of the program. It begins momentarily with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Joe Kristufek will have 3 races for you to keep an eye on at Churchill Downs later today. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History, coming up at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin will be with me to tackle some of the sport's hottest topics, Derby-related, coming up with I Ask, They Answer. If you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of the show, including jockey Joel Rosario and John Velazquez, all you have to do is head back to the website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast there. You can also do that on every podcast platform whenever you get some time. It is Derby Day, and only one person better that I can think of. Nobody better that I can think of. Let's do that again. It is Derby Day, and there is nobody better that I can think of to be joining me for this segment this morning than Joe Kristufek. It is the TwinSpires Triple Play. Joe, good morning, my friend.
Hey, good morning. Happy Derby Day.
Happy Derby Day, buddy. I appreciate you joining me, spending a few minutes. I know how swamped you are. We're going to dive right into it here on this edition here this morning. All three races you have selected for our listeners come from Churchill Downs, and you don't waste any time. You kick it off with the first race of the day, an early post time, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, 6.5 furlongs on the main track. It's a maiden special weight race with a purse of $120,000. Who do you like?
Yeah, Mike, I'm a company man, so I want you to make sure you're there for the first race and you start firing early. House United is where I'm going to go. Pretty wide open race to kick things off, this maiden special weight race, a lot of different ways you can go to kick off this early pick 5 with the low 15% takeout. Familiar with this horse from the fairgrounds. There was a little bit of buzz about this horse on debut on Louisiana Derby Day. Ran fourth that day, but broke very awkwardly from the start. Did break in a tangle, lost about 5 lengths, and then was shuffled a bit thereafter. Pretty much ran evenly in what I believe will be an excellent lesson-learning debut. Now you put the blinkers on. $335,000 Keeneland September yearling purchase by Constitution, and some sprint influences in the dam side of the family. Spendthrift, Alstall teaming up with Julian LaPeroux on number 6. House United, 5-1 in the morning line to get things started here on Derby Day.
Joe, I don't know why, but it seems like every Derby Day there's a race on the undercard that I find myself gravitating toward a horse that's trained by Al Stall Jr. He seems to have them ready to run on this particular day.
Yeah, the one that he won with last year, the name escapes me, but it was towards the latter end of the card, and it was an 11-1 shot, and I may even have given it to you guys on this program. I know I picked
I think
the
you
horse
did.
On the air, so yeah, maybe, and don't think that thought didn't sneak into my mind, but I was putting together your picks as well. So, yeah, Al Stall, he's like a lot of these trainers, Mike, even if you've got a maiden or a first-level allowance horse, you've got a lot of people in town. All eyes are on Churchill for Kentucky Derby Day. So if you can win a race on this day, even if it isn't one of the stakes, it still counts for quite a bit.
5-1 on number 6 House United in the opener of this 14-race program this afternoon. Again, early post, 10:30 Eastern. Make sure you get your day started with a winner there, and that's what we're going to be trying to do with House United. Let's move on to the 10th race. This is the Grade 1 Churchill Downs Stakes, one of several graded stakes races on this program leading up to the Kentucky Derby. 7/8 of a mile. That's 7 furlongs on the main track. How'd you see this one?
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this race ever since the tail end of the fairgrounds meet when Mr. Wireless, who was supposed to be using that March 14th race as a prep to a stretch out, most likely on this day but in a different race, ran the fastest 6 furlong time of the entire fairgrounds meet, and he did so authoritatively and off the bench, and just looked like maybe he's a one-turn horse moving forward. He's got a great resume in 2-turn races. He's earned over $1 million, but you think about a horse that has been successful at distances upwards of 9 furlongs, who just won a 6-furlong race off the bench, who gets to go 7 furlongs in this race here today, a distance that you would think 7 furlongs, 1-turn mile would hit this horse absolutely right between the eyes. I'm going to believe what I saw at Fairgrounds on March the 14th. He could not have been any more impressive. He faces a much tougher ask here. But, again, that was a tremendous race. He's 6-1 in the morning line. I think the distance will suit him perfectly. And I'm going to go right back to Mr. Wireless off that surprisingly impressive performance off the bench last out at Fairgrounds.
You don't get much more consistent than a horse like Mr. Wireless. 18 starts. He's been on the board in 14 of those 18 with 7 victories. He's earned over $1 million. How much would you like to own this horse, buddy?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I talked to Brett Calhoun, too. He's a 6-year-old gelding, and you can see the layoff from May to March. And, he said, the horse had some issues. He had some maintenance work done to Mr. Wireless, and he came back like he was a 2-year-old. Like he just was reinvigorated by that layoff, and it showed in that comeback race. I mean, yeah, he's earned $1 million. He's got 7 wins on the resume. We thought he was a 2-turn horse, and he may still be, but at the 6-1 morning line offering. I'm going to take a chance that 7 furlongs will suit him just fine.
All right, Mr. Wireless in race number 10. That brings us to the final leg of this week's TwinSpires Triple Play with Joe Kristufek. Don't forget, you can bet all these races any way you like. Just make sure you're betting every race you're going to play on this Derby day at TwinSpires. Joe, it is the 12th race on the program. That is the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby, a purse of $5 million, mile and a quarter, and a full field of 3-year-olds set to go. What do you think?
Well, it's only taken me 7 months to handicap this race, Mike, and it was painstaking when I had to finalize my selections. And I went back to an old friend, Sierra Leone, who I got to see win at Fairgrounds in the Risen Star, overcoming a slow start, traffic trouble, wide turn, sloppy track, slow pace, all that good stuff. Came back and won the Bluegrass. I think that was the last time I was on with you. We picked him that day at an even shorter price. But he's done nothing to steer me off of him going into the Derby with his recent training. He's an absolute monster. I think the pace in the Derby is going to be fast. And, Tyler Gaffalione knows when to push the button. This horse, when he's unleashed, just absolutely gobbles up ground. Likely second choice in the Derby behind Fierceness, who it looks like is going to be the defined favorite in the Kentucky Derby. It looks like he could get a great trip potentially, but unlike Sierra Leone, Fierceness has not overcome adversity. He, just hasn't proven that he could win a battle yet. Fierceness hasn't done that when Sierra Leone has done all of those things. And I just think if I can get 4-1, 9-2 even on Sierra Leone, that's just too much to pass up. I like Catching Freedom a lot too. He's going to be a lot bigger price than Sierra Leone, probably double the price. I was really torn between the two as far as who I was going to make my top pick, but in the end, I did go to Sierra Leone.
Joe, neither of those horses have much early speed. They're going to have to weave through a lot of traffic in a big field. Does that concern you at all?
Yeah, I mean, the weaving through traffic thing, I think it's more about the first turn and settling in and finding position, because once you hit the backstretch, there's a lot of horses in this race that I think are overmatched, A. B, aren't going to get a mile and a quarter. So I think by the time you get to the half-mile pole, there's not going to be nearly as much traffic. And if it's a situation where there is some traffic, it's going to be horses backing up. And, I'm quite positive that unless he gets very unlucky, Tyler's not going to put this horse in a compromised spot. He knows what he has underneath him. He's going to keep the horse on the outside. This horse has a tremendous quarter-of-a-mile run, and I don't even think we've seen the best of him yet. He's been a little bit of a green with these rallies to win the Risen Star and the Bluegrass. I got no question about his ability to get the distance, so Sierra Leone for me.
Sierra Leone and also Catching Freedom, another horse that Joe feels as if could be very, very live in today's Kentucky Derby. Joe, you've been doing the work show with TwinSpires all week long at Churchill Downs. Has there been one or two horses outside of those horses that maybe is going to be a 20, 30 to 1 shot that you said, he's getting over the surface really good, might be worth throwing into some trifecta or superfecta wagers?
Yeah, well, Honor Marie would be one of those. I know a lot of people will probably give that same answer. Has trained well here, seemingly maybe training with a little bit more speed than he did this past winter at Fairgrounds. Third race of the form cycle, second of Louisiana Derby, won the Kentucky Jockey Club here. And then the other one is Bombs Away for me. That's a domestic product who also is trained by Chad Brown, the trainer of Sierra Leone. And I know his speed figures are very slow, but those are some slow-paced races. He's been training heads up with Sierra Leone in the mornings. He looks really good, and I just think that he's better than he looks on paper. I know Chad has been bullish on the horse all week leading up to the Derby, so that would be my 30, 40, 50 to 1 that I will be including in all of my gimmick wagers in the Derby this year.
What are you doing with Forever Young?
You know what, Mike? I've talked about this horse to a few different people, and even on a regular basis, when I pick and bet on races as a public handicapper at Churchill Downs, sometimes you'll run into unknown commodities. And my inclination would be if I don't like the other horses in the race, maybe I would go with the unknown commodity. And to me, although, I can watch replays and I can watch the way the horse trains and I can understand the connections, I just don't have enough foundational basis for having a legitimate opinion on this horse. So if he beats me, he beats me. He does get out of the gate a little bit slow, which concerns me from the middle of the pack. He's a horse that likes to be in a stalking position. I think he can get pinched back into that first turn, lose position, and make his task a lot more difficult against his field. But there are too many American horses that I have a much better handle on that I like than to, rely on a horse that I really don't know all that much about from a genuine perspective. So that's a long answer to your short question.
Joe Kristufek here with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Joe, before I let you go, I will recap your top three. You'll kick it off in race 1 at Churchill with number 6, House United, at odds of 5-1. Race 10, you'll go with number 4, Mr. Wireless, at 6-1. And race 12 at Churchill, the Kentucky Derby, you'll go with number 2, Sierra Leone, who is 3-1 on the morning line. Maybe we get 7-2, 4-1. We'll see how the bettors end up settling that issue with Sierra Leone. But one thing's for sure, man, it is going to be such a treat to be part of this, the 150th Run for the Roses. Joe, I can't thank you enough. You're a big part of this Kentucky Derby and a big part of the HRRN Nation. Really appreciate it, my friend. Good luck.
Yeah, Mike, thanks. Lots of scouting, lots of preps watched and replays and research and pedigrees and workouts. I mean, we put a lot of work in for it all to be over in 2 minutes. So hopefully it goes my way, our way, the listeners' way. But most importantly, like you said, just enjoy it.
Enjoy it and play those races at TwinSpires. Joe, appreciate it, my friend. Enjoy Derby Day.
All right, cheers. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Joe Kristufek with that TwinSpires Triple Play. Coming up next, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History, and then Dale and Tim coming up at 10:30 Eastern with a Derby edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The Keeneland September Yearling Sale is the global marketplace for thoroughbred yearlings and the world's most important thoroughbred sale. The September sale stands apart from all other auctions. It offers a critical mass of quality yearlings at all levels of the market and the largest and most diverse buying bench in the world. The success of Keeneland September graduates can be seen at the highest levels of racing worldwide. The 2024 September sale begins Monday, September 9th and runs through Saturday, September 21st. Entry deadline is May 1st.
There are thrills around every turn at Gulfstream Park during the Royal Palm Meet with live horse racing action Thursday through Sunday and simulcast opportunities 7 days a week. Come out and enjoy weekend stakes races, including the Royal Palm Juvenile on the road to Royal Ascot. Take in the action from the Carousel Club or feast in Ten Palms Restaurant with an elevated view of the track. For stake schedules, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
Oscar Performance, the #1 sire of greatest stakes winners over all sires by percentage of starters in 2024 and 100-plus named foals. More than Into Mischief, Curlin, Gunrunner, Quality Road, and Justify, and includes Kentucky Derby contender Endlessly. Trainer Michael McCarthy comments, "Endlessly impressed me from the start, as he was quick to learn his lessons, and his mind may be his biggest asset."
How about Endlessly, a good-looking winner of the Jeff Roby?
Oscar Performance, standing at Millridge.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Scholarships are available. Visit rtip.arizona.edu.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He was a former claimer which shocked the racing world by scoring a 31-1 upset in the 125th running of the Kentucky Derby. His name was Charismatic. Foaled at 8:40 p.m. on Wednesday, March 13, 1996, at Parish Hill Farm of Dr. Ben Roach in Midway, Kentucky, Charismatic was a shiny copper chestnut colt by Preakness winner Summer Squall out of Bally Babe by Drone. The colt's mother had raced just twice in her career and lost both starts by a combined margin of 32 lengths. Bred by Parish Hill in partnership with William S. Farish of Lane's End Farm, Charismatic sold privately as a weanling for $200,000 to Robert and Beverly Lewis of Newport Beach, California. The colt was put through his initial training with Amy Lopresti at Forest Lane Farm in Lexington, Kentucky, and she would later remember him as a colt which was head shy, funny about his ears, but never did anything silly. She added that he could gallop 2 miles and not blow out a candle. Eventually sent to the barn of trainer D. Wayne Lucas, Charismatic lost in June, July, August, and twice in October of his juvenile year before finally breaking his maiden. That first career win came in his 6th start on November 21st, 1998 at Hollywood Park, and it came on a class drop into the claiming ranks for a price of $62,500. Fortunately for the connections, there were no takers. Lucas decided to give Charismatic another chance to prove himself. As the colt began his 3-year-old campaign in January of 1999, Lucas entered him in the Grade 2 Santa Catalina Stakes, but Charismatic ran last, beaten 13 lengths. Following that performance, Charismatic went back on the market. Lucas entered him once again for a claiming price of $62,500, and once again the colt responded with a win. Sort of. Charismatic was actually second across the wire, but was promoted by the stewards after the initial winner was disqualified for interference in the stretch. Still, a win is a win. So once again, Lucas moved Charismatic into graded stakes company. This time, the experiment went better when he took runner-up at Bay Meadows in the Grade 2 El Camino Real Derby, a race he lost by only a head. But 1 month later, Charismatic finished a lackluster 4th in the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby. Despite the mixed results, Lucas made a decision. Charismatic was going to the Kentucky Derby. The only problem was the colt did not have enough earnings in graded stakes to make it into what was likely to be a 20-horse field. And so it was that Lucas sent Charismatic to Kentucky, to Keeneland, for the Grade 3 Lexington Stakes. With Jerry Bailey in the saddle, Charismatic pulled a 12-1 upset, and with $230,000 in earnings for that effort, he was now fully qualified for a starting spot in the Derby. When Charismatic arrived at Churchill Downs, Jay Hovde of Daily Racing Form wrote that he looked like a Breyer horse come to life, with a bright caramel coat about 5 shades of red. Hovde continued, saying, he has an avocado-shaped star between his eyes, leading to a dribble of white down the bridge of his nose and spilling slightly to one side. His front stockings reach nearly to his knees. The hind socks have slipped a bit, Pete Maravich style, but they still creep well up the cannon bone. His head appears small until you comprehend the thickness of his neck and depth of his shoulder, leading eventually to powerful loins and hindquarters. And so it was that Charismatic, the horse which Hovde had described, stepped onto the track at Churchill Downs on Saturday, May 1st, 1999, for the 125th running of the Kentucky Derby. Chris Antley would be riding him for the first time. The post-time odds were a whopping 31-1. Dave Johnson gives us the call.
Cat Thief digging in at the rail. Worldly Matter with Jared Bailey. Charismatic trained by Lucas on the outside. Now Lucas running 1-2. Charismatic on the outside. Takes command. On the inside, Cat Thief in the middle of the track. Menifee is flying, but it's Charismatic holding on to win it by a head. Menifee flying on the outside, and Cat Thief, I believe, was third.
What a dramatic victory as Charismatic and Chris Handley team up to get the roses for Lucas.
In the words of a headline which appeared in the New York Times the next day, Charismatic not only had won the Kentucky Derby, but also had gone from claimer to acclaimed. Lucas would admit that he had never misjudged a horse as much as he had misjudged this one. And with a $2 mutual win ticket returning $64, Charismatic had scored the third biggest upset in Kentucky Derby history. Despite the win, Charismatic would be dismissed at 8-1 odds 2 weeks later in the Preakness, and once again he would finish first. By the time of the Belmont Stakes, the public finally had developed enough faith in the colt to make him the 8-5 favorite, but he finished third. It would be the final start of his career, as he sustained an injury that day as he was nearing the wire. Charismatic would be named Eclipse Champion 3-year-old male as well as Horse of the Year for 1999, becoming the first horse in 56 years to win the latter award despite not racing after the month of June. He would also retire to stallion duty at Lane's End Farm, where he stood for 3 seasons in Kentucky before being sold to Japanese interests. Following 14 years in Japan, he concluded his stallion career with modest success and came back to the U.S., where he then became a resident at Old Friends Equine in Georgetown, Kentucky. Charismatic died there in February of 2017 at the age of 21. He was a knockout looker and an overachiever, Lucas said as he reflected on Charismatic's career. It was a joy to be around him. We remember Charismatic, winner of the 125th running of the Kentucky Derby, and we wish everyone a safe journey later today in the 150th Run for the Roses. Happy Derby Day, everyone. Please join me again next week when I take another Stroll Through Racing History presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
And once again, my thanks to Kurt and to Keeneland for making those segments possible each and every week. If you have missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, all you have to do is head back over to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can check out the special podcast page dedicated to those stories and listen to every single one. There have been some amazing ones. Go back and listen at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, they will be here. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Send your mare to Maryland. After she foals here, breed to one of our stallions, and your 2024 foal is eligible to be a registered Maryland bred, giving you the opportunity to earn significant bonuses. Beginning with 2-year-olds of 2025, Maryland bred and Maryland sired horses will earn 40% higher breeder bonuses than out-of-state sired runners. Better stallions, better mares, Maryland breds. Learn more at MarylandThoroughbred.com.
In 1993, Dr. John West showed that EIPH occurs during exercise when blood vessels in the lungs rupture. This is due to stress caused by high blood pressure on the inside of the vessels and strong suction forces on the outside. Only flare strips and Lasix, used together or alone, have been clinically proven to reduce EIPH. Lasix works by reducing the high internal pressures, and flare strips work by reducing the suction forces on the outside. See the science at flarestrips.com.
Times have changed, but some things remain timeless. Hard work, perseverance, unwavering dedication. From sun up to sundown, our passion fuels us to drive further and push harder. We do it for the horses, for our families, and for the sport we all love. For well over a century, we've committed to doing the usual, unusually well. Claiborne Farm. The tradition continues.
The 2024 Spring Meet at Churchill Downs kicks off April 27th with a slate of exciting race day events leading up to the 150th Kentucky Derby. Following the Kentucky Derby, Churchill Downs Spring Meet continues with live racing throughout May and June, including the Grade 1 Stephen Foster on June 29th. With 50 stakes races worth over $25 million and purses powered by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, you will not want to miss the Spring Meet at Churchill Downs. You can learn more about each day and see available ticket options by visiting churchilldowns.com.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
Record time here in the Derby at the top of the stretch, and it is Congaree who is full out. Here comes Monarchos under a heavy drive on the far outside. Invisible Ink is there. Point given, not today. 1 furlong left. Here comes Monarchos, who sweeps to the lead. He's pulling away by 2. He's pulling away by 3. Jorge Chavez and Monarchos have won the Kentucky Derby, and the final time was 1 minute 59 and 4/5 seconds. He was as fast as Secretariat.
Tom Durkin with the call of the 2001 Run for the Roses. Monarchos joining Secretariat as the only horses ever to win the Kentucky Derby in under 2 minutes. Is it right or wrong to think we will see a third member of that club this year? Plus, which of Wayne Lucas's 4 Derby wins should we consider to be his greatest training feat? And what do Dale and Tim see as the most compelling storyline in this year's Kentucky Derby? We'll talk about those topics and much, much more straight ahead on a Derby Day edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin, all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business, and all starting just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
All right, before we kick things off on this edition of I Ask, They Answer, guys, I just want to give a shout-out to Amy Lawyer, who is the department chair for the Equine Industry Program at the University of Louisville, the longtime sponsor of this segment. I caught up with Amy, had a wonderful chat with her on the backside of Churchill Downs the other morning, and they have some incredible things planned for their students coming up, and I would highly recommend to anybody who is considering maybe making a career in the industry or being part of that program to give them a call, to go to their website and check it all out, because there are going to be some incredible opportunities for students coming up later this year and going into next year at the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program. All right, topic number 1. Kick it off this way. We are celebrating the 150th Kentucky Derby this year, so I thought it would be appropriate to begin the show by looking back on a few significant anniversaries. And today marks the 67-year anniversary of the late Hall of Fame jockey Bill Shoemaker's infamous misjudgment of the finish line in the Kentucky Derby. That was on May 4th, 1957, when Shoemaker stood up in the irons prematurely aboard Gallant Man, who lost by a nose to Iron Liege. And it was also on this day in 1968 that Dancer's Image became the first horse to be disqualified from the Kentucky Derby after testing positive for an illegal medication, giving Forward Pass the victory that year. So, guys, I'll begin the show this way. I'll ask each of you to recall some of your more bizarre occurrences in Kentucky Derby history. Dale, what comes to mind?
Well, the first thing that pops in mind is Ali Sheba when he came off the turn and ran into the horse in front of Tim. Tell me the horse's name he bumped into.
Bet Twice,
right, and almost went down. 2 great horses, by the way. He almost fell, and McCarron almost came off of him. He told me later in life that it was self-preservation that kept him on. And he straightened up and went on to win. Of course, everybody knows what a great racehorse Ali Sheba went on to be. And but I think that was one of the most bizarre things I've seen in a race, for a horse to overcome what he did and still win the race.
Because it would have been tragic. It could have been possibly really tragic if that horse would have went down.
It could have been really bad. Yeah. If Fleet Alex did it, Fleet Alex did about the same thing, but that was in the Preakness and fell. But for the Derby, that was just unbelievable. Ali Sheba, what a performance he put on.
It certainly was. I have a couple of them that I guess you'd call it bizarre. and they're both fairly recent. I mean, in 2020, the year of the COVID, when there were no fans at all at Churchill Downs for the running of the race, which was held in September because of COVID, and Authentic beat the favored Tis the Law. And it was just eerie to hear, everyone's used to the roar of the crowd and when the horses turn into the stretch, and there was none of that. And, what made it even more bizarre was the Derby wasn't even the first leg of the Triple Crown that year, because the Belmont was held in June at a mile and an eighth, and Tis the Law won that. And a lot of people were thinking he was going to win the Triple Crown, but Authentic got him. I mean, that was just and Tis the Law also won the Travers before the Derby. So that was a bizarre year. And also in 2019, when Maximum Security looked like he was going to go 5 for 5 by winning the Derby, he won the race by a length and 3/4. But then the inquiry sign came out, and there was a 23-minute delay. As I remember running around down there, going to the box with the West. We're in the owner Gary and Mary West of the Maximum Security, and they didn't know what was going on. I remember being with Bill Mott, who was trained Country House, who finished second, who eventually became the winner of the race at 65-1. It was just a really weird setting when you had a horse being DQ'd from the Derby. I know it had happened before, but that the horse that finished under the line first was DQ'd for he caused the traffic problems with and Royal Will almost went down. That was a really weird, bizarre circumstance, and just being around there for the whole 23 minutes while the inquiry was going on was wild.
Yeah, I'll go back. We were doing the broadcast of that race, Timmy, on radio in partnership with NBC, and oh my goodness, trying to describe to people what was going on as that was taking place, and it was a chaotic scene down below, I would imagine, right?
Oh yeah, it was. They took the flowers away from. The blanket of flowers away from. I think the Wests were on their way over to the infield, and it was just nobody knew what was going on. I think a lot of people were saying there's no way they're going to take a horse down to the Kentucky Derby, but Bill Mott, as savvy as he is, the longer it went on, because I remember standing behind him as he was watching a TV monitor right off of the path going out to the track, and he knew there was he had a pretty good idea it was going to happen, but just the fact that going through the emotions of both camps was very interesting to observe.
Yeah, I'll give you two more bizarre occurrences: Mind That Bird and Rich Strike.
Yeah, those were bizarre.
Bizarre results, anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Chip Woolley, the on the crutches after with Mind That Bird. I remember being out in the barns that week, and I remember walking past his barn, and no one was talking to him. No one. I mean, every time I went by there, the guy was just standing there on his crutches, and who would have thought that he was going to win the Kentucky Derby? No one did, because no one talked to him all week.
Yeah, wild. There have been so many incredible moments, and here's another one for you. Let's move on to this next topic. It was on this day in 1996 that the legendary Hall of Fame trainer D. Wayne Lucas tallied the third of his 4 Derby victories thanks to this stretch running performance.
Unbridled Stone, Cavalier on the inside, off the middle of the track, Grindstone is closing stoutly. It's Cavalier on the inside and Grindstone on the outside. McCarron and Bailey, here's the finish. Again, too tight to call. Was it Cavalier on the inside? Was it Bailey with Grindstone on the outside? Noses apart after a mile and a quarter in the Kentucky Derby.
Dave Johnson with that call 28 years ago for the coach D. Wayne Lucas. His 4 Derby wins place him in a tie for second all-time with the late Derby Dick Thompson. Which of Lucas's Derby wins, guys, should we consider to be his greatest training feat? Was it Winning Colors? Was it Thunder Gulch, Grindstone, or Charismatic? Tim, what do you think?
I'm going Charismatic all day. That's a horse that Wayne Lucas had so much confidence. He never, ever wavered in his confidence. He knew there was talent in there, even when it took the horse 6 starts to break his maiden. And then, he was in his 3-year-old year. He started. It was in a claiming race, and it wasn't until a 4th place finish in the Santa Anita Derby that Wayne was thinking, well, still know there's something in there. I'm going to send him to the Lexington, see if I can get the rated stakes earnings to get into the Derby. He won the Lexington at 12-1, and then he went into the Derby and he won it for the Lewises and Chris Antley, and it was just a masterful training job. And the thing about Wayne is he loves it when no one gives him a chance. That's when he shines. And he did the same thing with Thunder Gulch, which I still can't figure out how he went off at 24-1. This is a horse that won the Florida Derby and the Fountain of Youth, and because he finished 4th in the Bluegrass as a favorite, he was dismissed in the Derby. That's a mistake to do with the coach.
Always a mistake to leave him out. That is great with Charismatic. And I'll tell you, for a year after that, he won the Derby. Every month you run into somebody that said they had a claim slip filled out for him at Santa Anita and tore it up. So everybody was going to claim him. Nobody did. He ran for $62,000 out there. Someone could have bought a Derby winner for $62,000. But I think running to Philly and going wire to wire is his greatest feat. And it's pretty that was pretty incredible. And again, it's Wayne. Wayne was untouchable, and you couldn't question any decisions he made. And he had the backbone to step up and put the Philly in the Kentucky Derby, and it paid off for him. There's only been 3 fillies in 150 years, 149 runnings that have won the Kentucky Derby, and one of them is Wayne Lucas. I think that has to be his most historic.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you, Dal. And Timmy, I can't disagree with you either on Charismatic, but winning colors, his first Derby win, coming from the quarter horse side of things, getting her to beat the boys at 1.25 miles. I know she had beaten him in the Santa Anita Derby too, but Dale, I think it's always hard to get that first one under your belt, and seeing him do it with winning colors is pretty special.
No doubt.
Yep, no doubt. All right, moving on. It is time to welcome our good friend Nick Zito to the program. And Dale and Tim get to tell me if the following statements are right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
All right, here you go. 3 topics for you this week. Fierceness will lead every step of the way en route to winning this year's Kentucky Derby. Tim Wilkin, is that right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
I think that's wrong. I think Fierceness has a great chance to win the Derby, but I'm not convinced he's going to be at the in the lead right from the jump. Johnny Velazquez and he are going to break from post 16, not 17, and there are other speed horses that'll be to the left of him that are signed up. Horses like Dornock and Track Phantom. Track Phantom I think is going to go putting the blinkers on, and Just a Touch. I think Fierceness will be right close, but I don't think he'll be on the lead. But I think at the 8th pole, he very well could be.
Yep. Dale, what do you think?
I think it's wrong. I think that it's that he's going to set off the unrealistic pace going down the front side for the first time. I think he sits in the catbird seat. I don't think he has to have the lead. I think as long as he's in the clear, I think Dornock has to go out of the 1 hole. Send hard. I think a couple of those will be sending. I think they'll go super fast. He'll wait 3rd or 4th and inherit the lead around the far turn. And if he's good enough, he'll keep right on going.
All right, number 2. 1 year after missing out on last year's Kentucky Derby after being wrongly suspended and eventually cleared of any wrongdoing, trainer Saffie Joseph Jr. will get the ultimate last word and win this year's Kentucky Derby with Catalytic. Is that right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Dale, what do you think?
I think you're wrong. I don't think he wins. I think he's a nice horse and he's training well. I just don't. I think I've said all along, I think it's a 2-horse race. But, no, I think you're wrong on this one.
I think you're wrong as well. I mean, he got into this race because he finished 2nd in the Florida Derby behind Fierceness, 13.5 lengths behind Fierceness. And, listening to what Saffie's been saying all week, it's not like he's going in there thinking he's loaded for bear. He knows that he has a lot of lengths he has to make up. And I think he mentioned something, I'm paraphrasing here, said he's he says we'd have to be like a Mind That Bird or a Rich Strike. He knows crazy results happen in the Derby, but I think it would even shock him if he were to win this race.
Yeah, he's got to make up a lot of ground on fierceness and everybody else. We'll see if he can pull it off. One more for you. 51 years ago tomorrow, the Great Secretariat became the first horse to win the Kentucky Derby with a final running time under 2 minutes. Monarchos joined him in 2001. If I were to say there will be a third name in this illustrious category after this year's Derby, would I be right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Tim?
I'm going to strike 3 times in a row and say wrong. That's rarefied air that we're talking, what Secretariat did. And Monarchos, God bless him, what he did, but I don't think anyone ever expected that was going to happen with Monarchos. And, since he did that, the closest anyone has come to that is Authentic in 2020 when he ran 2 minutes and 3. So I would be shocked. And as good as fierceness is, and what he's done, I don't know if he's going to run a hole through the wind like Secretariat and Monarchos did. So I'm going to say no.
Yeah, it's easy to say it's 2 for 49, so it's easy to say no to this. If someone does it, it'll be a freak performance from Pearson, and he'll crush the field. But that's the only one I see in there that has the talent to get that kind of time. The track is fast, though. On Wednesday, they set a track record going 1.5 miles, broke it by a second. The track's fast. But we're also looking at some weather coming in, so there'll be some moisture in the racetrack. I don't see it happening this year.
Well, all those questions and more are going to be answered shortly before 7 o'clock Eastern. We'll welcome Nick Zito back to the program for Right or Wrong next Saturday morning with a Derby recap edition of this show. Guys, a couple more topics to get to, and one of those comes from a listener. I will bring that one your way shortly. But the next topic, rank these storylines 1 through 5 in order of which one is the most compelling, 1 being the most compelling. Jockey Keith Asmussen wins the Derby in his first attempt. His Hall of Fame father, Steve Asmussen, gets his first Derby win with his 26th starter. Trainer Larry Demerit wins with West Saratoga. Veteran trainer Ken McPeak wins his first Derby with Mystic Dan. And Japan breaks through for their first Derby win. Which of those 5 strikes you as the most compelling? Tim?
Oh, man, they're all good stories. I mean, if I had to rank them, number 1, I'd put Larry Demerit. I'm butchering the name, aren't I?
Demerit.
How do you pronounce Demerit? He's been fighting cancer for like 28 years. A guy from Bahamas. He's like in his 70s. West Saratoga's only his second-graded stakes horse that he's ever had in his career. I mean, the Derby will be his 15th start of the year. I mean, trainers like Asmussen have 15 starters in one day at tracks across the country. So I think that would be the first one. And if I had to go rank the other ones, I'd put Kenny McPeak second, Steve Asmussen third, Keith Asmussen fourth. I mean, he's a first-time jockey. There's been 44 jockeys in the history of the Kentucky Derby that have won it on their first mount. Only 3 though since 2000. And then I'm putting the Japanese thing at the end because they still got to show me they can do it. They haven't shown me they can do it on this thing, and it's a tough ship. So if they do it, God bless them. But that's my 5th. That's number 5 for me.
I don't think I'll rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I'll give you what my biggest storyline would be. Keith Asmussen winning the Kentucky Derby before his father. I mean, everybody thinks there's a Derby with Asmussen name on it. How many of us thought it would be Keith? And not only in that story is also Wayne Lucas coming back at 89 years old and winning his 5th Kentucky Derby. I think that storyline is the most compelling of the whole week, and I'm cheering for Wayne and Keith. It'd be great to see. We had a question last night at dinner. Who do you think Mom's cheering for? Her husband or her son? and I'm going to tell you this.
A dead heat.
Yeah. And which would make Steve happier? Steve's a great father, loves his kids. Which would make him happier, winning himself or seeing his son in the winner's circle with the legend?
Dale, it's interesting you bring up that side of it because Keith Asmussen was on this program with me last week, and I asked him that question about potentially denying his father his first Derby win if Keith were to somehow win the race. And he said, he said, I can tell you that my dad will be just as happy, maybe even happier for me as he would be if he were to win the race.
I think he's telling the truth. I believe that at 100%. I know Steve well, and I believe that 100%.
Yep.
Well, Dale, if you were to win the Derby and Jake, your son, had a jockey in the race and he won it, who would you be more happy for? Who would you be rooting for?
No, that's a little different. If he was a jockey, though, I think I'd have to root for him. Jockey agent, a little different. He's got a lot of time to do it. Keith's got a short window of opportunities. But if he was the rider, I think I'd be more happy for my son.
Yeah.
Yep, one of the great storylines associated with this year's Derby, and there are several, and that certainly is right at the top of the list. Okay, one more question before I'm going to ask you both for your selections and maybe a four-horse superfecta box that people can play in this year's Kentucky Derby. But let's go to this one. It is submitted via email by Jeff in Morgantown, West Virginia, and Jeff is an art teacher, and he wants to know, he's getting ready to teach his students a lesson, and he always uses some type of horse racing lesson around this time of year, around Derby time. And he's preparing for this one. The Rules of Jockey Silks is what it's called. He found a website that listed some of the rules that owners have to abide by when they're applying for their silks with the Jockey Club. And it says navy blue is not an available color. And the reason for this rule is that navy blue looks too much like black from a distance. Well, Sierra Leone silks, if you look at the program, are all navy blue and a navy blue cap. So his question for you guys, he wants to know, how did the owners of Sierra Leone get their navy blue silks approved by the Jockey Club? Dale, what do you think? How did it happen?
Well, first of all, those rules only apply for horses racing in New York. I don't know in the old days if they applied for around the country, but there's a lot of rules. The size of chevrons on the sleeve, the number of chevrons on the sleeve, the number of bars on the actual shirt, whatever's in front has to be on back. And those rules only apply these days when you're racing at NYRA, not even in New York. Finger Lakes, you can wear whatever you want. So they're all obsolete anyway, and I don't even think they're looked at that hard anymore. And the reason they always the rule you're talking about, they couldn't distinguish between navy blue and black. The rest of the rules are that they didn't want to keep people, have duplicate silks. And all those old families up there had their silks, and they were proud of them, and that was their colors and only theirs, and nobody else could apply. So just like the black shirt with the cherry red cap for the Phippses, I mean, it's iconic. But those rules kind of have all gone to the wayside over the years.
Yeah, it's my understanding, too, that rule, I don't know what website our listener was looking at when he found that, but I do think that rule, it's my understanding, is no longer a rule. It's an outdated rule, so maybe that website that Jeff was on hadn't been updated or was listing rules that were previously in place. But, Dale, correct me if I'm wrong, that is no longer the case, right?
Those rules are all pretty obsolete, and that rule probably is off the table, too, the blue.
Okay. All right, well, that clears it up. Jeff, appreciate the question. If you have a question for Dale and Tim, especially a question pertaining to this year's Kentucky Derby or Kentucky Oaks, whatever it might be, submit them to us, and we will work those in to next week's show. All right, here we go. One final topic, and this is it, guys. It's time to give me your winner of Kentucky Derby 150 and the 4 horses that you think can finish 1, 2, 3, 4 in some order. That doesn't have to be exact order. Tim, why don't you kick it off? Who's your winner, and who are your top 4?
Well, I want to preface this by saying I hate picking the favorite. I hate doing that. I always try to beat the favorite, but I just think Fierceness is too tough for these. I think he's your most likely winner, and if I'm going to fill out a superfecta, I'm going to use Resilience, the Wood Memorial winner. I'm going to use Sierra Leone, and I think I'm going to also use Track Phantom. So that's my 4.
I got to go Fierceness too. Fierceness over Sierra Leone, and Wayne Lucas in 3rd, and the Louisiana Derby winner with Brad Cox in 4th.
Catching Freedom.
Catching Freedom.
Yep. All right. I'm going to take Resilience. I like Resilience. I like the way he's been training. I liked his win in the Wood Memorial. I'm going to take him in a little bit of a upset. I think Sierra Leone needs to be in your top 4. Honor Marie has been training exceptionally well. I think Honor Marie can be in the mix. And if I'm going to go with a 4th one, maybe Domestic Product for Chad Brown, a horse that was running really well late and got up to win the Tampa Bay Derby. So
Give me that horse to kick into my trifectas, too.
Good pick.
We'll see how it all plays out right before 7 o'clock Eastern, guys. All right, time for your West Point of the week as we wrap up the show. This segment presented every week by our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. Remember that owning a racehorse with West Point Thoroughbreds means you are in the care of complete professionals who guide you throughout your ownership journey. You'll get instant access to the highest levels of racing, world-class trainers, jockeys, racetracks, and, of course, your horse. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Tim, what is your West Point of the week?
I want to make a shout-out to a horse named Next. On Wednesday, he won the Isaac Murphy Marathon at Churchill by 11 1/4 lengths. That's his third straight win, dating back to last year, with combined lengths of 48. Combined lengths of winning 48 lengths. I mean, this is a gray 6-year-old, and the marathoners don't get a lot of publicity or notice, but Doug Collins has done a great job with him. And supposedly we're gonna see him next at the Suburban at Saratoga on June 8th. So keep on running, Next. You run forever.
Love it. Dale?
Say it's the greatest day of the year. Everybody go out and have fun. Let's have a safe Kentucky Derby day.
Amen to that. Like Christmas with horses. I say it every year. Enjoy the Kentucky Derby, guys. We're going to do this all over again next week.
Thanks, fellas.
All right. If you have a question or a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim discuss, simply email it to me, mike@horseracingradio.net, or post it on our social media pages, and we'll get that worked into the program for you. I Ask the Answer is presented every week by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. I'm back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
Prairie Meadows' highly anticipated live thoroughbred horse racing season opener is Friday, May 10th, featuring races Friday through Monday with a variety of special race days and events, including the Iowa Festival of Racing on July 5th and 6th and the Iowa Classic on September 28th. Host times are 6 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays, 4 p.m. on Sundays and Mondays. Experience the thrill of horse racing at Prairie Meadows, your favorite place to play. Visit prairiemeadows.com for more information.
From a world-class team of equine industry leaders with international breadth that honors history, tradition, and the sport comes business advisory expertise, providing strategic tax compliance and operational services with innovation and determined persistence. Located in the heart of horse country, Dean Dorton is revered for visionary guidance in equine accounting, tax, and business consulting. Dean Dorton. Tax, technology, outsourced accounting. Visit deandorton.com for all your equine operation needs.
Hi, Tony. Hey, Matthew. There's a reason why Tony's Steaks and Seafood is my favorite restaurant. It's because I want to feel part of the family. Isn't that right, Tony?
That's right. There's a saying on the wall that I truly believe in. There's always room for one more at our table. We just want you to be part of our family.
And believe me, you will be. It's Tony's Steaks and Seafood right across from Triangle Park. Visit them at Tony'sSteaksandSeafood.com.
In honor of all those we've lost to cancer and those still fighting and thriving, like basketball analyst and cancer champion Dick Vitale.
I want to beat cancer. I'm going to beat it. That's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to win this battle.
Defeating cancer will take all of us. Join our team to help fund game-changing research that saves lives. At the V Foundation, V is for victory over cancer. V is for victory over the odds. V is for victory over health disparities, victory over setbacks, victory over the unknown. V is for victory over giving up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Donate to the V Foundation to join our team and help save lives.
Cancer can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul.
100% of donations fund game-changing cancer research. Donate now to the V Foundation at v.org.
Trainer Talk, presented by Fasig-Tipton.
Please join me in welcoming Hall of Fame trainer Todd Fletcher.
Hall of Fame trainer Nick Zito on Trainer Talk. Welcome Hall of Famer Bob Baffert to the program. Hall of Fame trainer Shug McGahee, nice enough to spend some time with us. Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott here on Trainer Talk. Dual Hall of Fame trainer Mark Cassie.
Trainer Talk, the biggest names in horse racing. Wednesdays, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Sirius 162, XM 207, and streaming live at horseracingradio.net. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Remember that the May issue of Blood Horse Magazine and Tablet is out, and it features 150 pages, which includes some incredible stories. You can download a copy of the May issue now from the Blood Horse Magazine Tablet app via the App Store or Google Play, and you can order a copy by going to shop.bloodhorse.com or subscribe today at subscribe.bloodhorse.com. Fun show. The 150th Kentucky Derby coming up this afternoon. It's a loaded program. The undercard is fantastic, too, so make sure you're placing all your bets and doing that at TwinSpires. Some great storylines there. You heard me talk to Dale and Tim about some of the potential storylines, and it really is hard to look past that father-son combination of the all-time winningest trainer in North American racing history and Steve Asmussen, his son Keith Asmussen, who is getting set to ride in his first Kentucky Derby. And as Dale said, who would have thought? You think that there's a Derby out there with Asmussen's name on it, right? Remember, he hasn't won yet. So you think that there's one for Steve out there somewhere. How bizarre would it be? We talked about bizarre Kentucky Derby occurrences. If it would be Keith Asmussen to be the first Asmussen in the record books of the Kentucky Derby. I think that one certainly is right up there. And as Tim mentioned, Larry Demerit, you've heard him on this program a couple of times here, and Larry is somebody that's so easy to cheer for. There was a wonderful video out there this past week of he and Carl Nafsker, of course the trainer of Unbridled and Street Sense, sharing a few moments together, and then Carl asking Larry for a hug. And it was a beautiful moment in the barn area. It is all part of the behind-the-scenes stuff that is taking place at this year's Derby. Going to be special. Make sure you enjoy every single second of it. My thanks to all of our guests who made this show possible here this morning, including jockey Joel Rosario, the recent member of the Hall of Fame, the newest member, I should say, and Hall of Fame jockey John Velazquez. You heard from Dale and Tim in the previous segment, Kurt Becker with his Stroll Through Racing History, and Joe Kristufek with this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. If you missed any portion of the show, check out the podcast on our website and on every podcast platform. My thanks to my producer, Lee Delapina, in our Lexington studios, to Chauncey for handling all of our social media. I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening. Happy Derby. Go Steelers.